And we're live.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Ed's out there because he's been pestering us on the chat.
Yep.
And I got to ask Ed, is it a little different now sitting on the other end? Because it's usually me and then 1,000 miles to my right is you. But now it's somebody else.
Yep. A little more hair. Although I have cut mine recently. So.
I was just telling Chris that I don't really do a lot of formal kind of stuff for these live stream episodes. Normally I'm live streaming with Ed over at the Superman Super Show, but we don't do a bit. Hello and welcome to the live stream. Woo, this is episode number whatever. So, but yeah, hi, welcome to the live stream. That's Chris, by the way.
Hi.
That's Chris. And we'll do you want the background? It's just the cover to the first issue.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Ed's going to tell you now that I sent him a background, a Superman theme background, and I forced him to use it.
I was going to say, I figured it was a forced thing. I saw an episode. I was like, that doesn't seem like an Ed thing to do.
You know, I've already assumed that you and Ed have talked extensively ever since you and I, since I asked you if you wanted to do this, that immediately you got with Ed and like, what's it like?
Well, I have to get context. I gotta know what I'm getting into.
So I'm sure he told you that I'm a control freak.
Yep.
That I will just start shouting at you in the middle of episodes if you're not doing
copious amounts of show notes.
Okay. Yeah,
yes.
A lowly.
This was sent to me, mailed to me. This entire thing is just show notes for tonight. That's all it is.
Jesus Christ. All right. Well, like I said, I told my daughter that we might go pretty long. When Ed and I talk about a full issue, when we were talking about the Man of Steel, we always went 2.5 to 3 hours. So who knows? I mean, we'll just go and we'll stop when it feels right to stop, and then we'll see
what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what makes it into the edit. That's why, if you're watching the live stream, it's good to watch these because you're going to get a lot of stuff in the live stream that may or may not end up in the episode. Anything like what we're doing right now is we haven't started recording the actual episode yet. So this won't be in the episode, and there will probably be stuff when we finish the episode that we talk about that will not go in.
Where Steven pours hours of twice as long as it took to record in editing. To make that sound good.
I gotta make it sound good. It just drives me crazy.
It's like once Chris's accent starts coming out, once I get a little relaxed and loose.
You've said on the show what state you're from before, right? I'm not.
No, I've never told anyone where I live. No.
I think I know.
No, I'm from North Carolina.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
North Kakalaki.
Is
what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Our the company that I work for, their corporate headquarters are in North Carolina.
Oh, cool. Rhode Island. No Ed.
What's neat about that, I always say in the Superman Super Show, and we'll hear it when I do the introductions, that 1,000 miles to my right is another co-host, Mr. Ed Moore, and your North Carolina is about 1,300 miles.
Yeah, it's a little further. Yeah,
from
just a wee bit.
Yeah, still say 1,000 miles.
Yeah,
you're still to my right. I
still over there.
I only like talking to people who live to the right of me.
Oh gosh,
if I'm facing north.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's there's quite a few of us that are there to the right of you, so I think we're all good to go. So.
Well, because it started with CGS, right?
Yeah.
And they're in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So a lot of the really close-knit fans were also in the area, and that's how they became so close-knit, because they all got to hang out. Yeah. And then, of course, me sitting in Kansas with one tear rolling down my cheek because I can't go to Pennsylvania.
And the cool thing about that, though, not the tear thing. That was not cool. That's sad. We'll have a moment for you. But the cool thing was being able to meet those guys early on at like Heroes Con.
Yeah.
And meeting the guys from my fanboy and stuff like that, when none of us took anything that we did seriously, and Most of us still don't. But it's, it was just really kind of neat going, hey, these guys are like are younger than us. I mean, most folks are younger than me. I'm not sure how old you are, but most of them are younger than me. And me going, hey, you guys inspired me to do podcasting. Thanks a lot. Yeah. And they're like, cool. They're stumped, like that have no clue. Yeah, like, oh,
Well,
we did that.
yeah, but what's funny is you go back to that time. So when I first started podcasting, it was like late 2006.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2006, 2007. Chances are, if you talk to anybody who also had their own comic book podcast, there was a 99.9% chance that that person knew Comic Geek Speak and was probably that's probably who inspired them to start their show.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Because that's what pretty much most of us were.
Yeah. Or you were friends on the forums.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays, though, who knows? It's funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll talk to people who host comic book shows, and they oh yeah, I think I've heard. Yeah, they've been around for a while.
They've been around. Yeah, not since the beginning, but pretty close to it. So
it feels weird to think about podcasters out there doing comic book shows that were not directly influenced by comic
part of that first run of folks. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about like Augie and Chris Marshall and Around Comics and all those original
iFanboy.
I mean, Around Comics, iFanboy, those are all, like, in my mind, original folks within that first year or two. Of podcasting starting. So Ed's right.
Yep.
Derek,
Ed's got the list.
Yeah. So I mean, these are the guys that I was listening to as soon as I got an iPod and started listening to figuring out what this stuff. Had no idea. iTunes didn't know what to do with it. They didn't even have a podcasting section. But yeah, it was the Wild West back then. Now it's so organized. It's it's almost it's too organized for me. And so that's why I still lean on listening to all the older guys. There might be one or two folks I listen to that popped up in the last 5 years. Podcast Pickle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I still have all of Comic Addiction or most of Comic Addiction and Boom Addiction, stuff like that on Libsyn. Like I've been paying for that since 2005 or 6 or whatever it is. I've had an account with them since then, and it just stays there. So I don't want to lose it. But I don't want to find a computer to put all those files on either. That's a lot of downloading. So
of course, all mine are out there. I use Red Circle.
Yeah.
And then I have everything, not only are they out there, I also have them all on my computer and on a external hard drive.
Yeah.
And on Google Drive. So they're
even better.
As long as I can remember to keep up with all the backups, then because when I did my first 3 years with Just Another Fanboy and then stopped and then came back 10 years later and realized because I had them all saved to a couple of DVDs and I couldn't find both of them. And I was like, shit, I've lost all these episodes. Luckily, Ed had them.
Of course Ed would have them. So, Ed has everything.
So now I'm younger than Ed. Are you older? So you?
No, I'm younger than Ed. Yeah.
Are you younger than me?
Were
you born in the early 70s, the mid 70s, or the late 70s?
Late or early mid 70s.
I might be a little older than you then.
74.
72.
Oh, whoops! I just dropped a pen.
So I'm
like, oh my gosh!
I'm in that happy medium between old man Ed and young blood Chris.
Yeah. I'm constantly reminded at work how old that I actually am. I worked for a company that I started working for back in '94, and I got laid off in '08 and came back in '16. And And so there's still a lot of people that were there during that time I got laid off. But at the same time, there are a lot of younger folks. And I'm constantly reminded how not young I am.
Yeah.
So I was like, can somebody help me here lift this? Appreciate it. That's great. I'm just gonna sit over here with my cup of coffee and try not to be in pain for a little while.
Yeah, there's nothing that youngsters like to do more than remind us old folk.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
Youth is wasted on the youth. Is that the line?
Something like that. Wasted on the
like
young, yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my side of the recording, and then I'll just kind of merge everything together and
cool.
see what we come up with here. But you ready to do this sucker here?
Yep.
All right.
I had to close all my audio windows. I had a few still up. I was like, oh, click.
All right. So yeah, like I said, I got a few things here, those little spiels that I kind of go through, and then we'll just you've done this long enough.
I've done it once or twice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Follow my lead. Ed, are you calling either of us a goat sucker? No, he's talking about what we're going to talk about.
That was my bandstand in high school.
Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Show, the podcast that's a show about comics. I'm your host. My name is Steven, and this, folks, is season 2. And guess what? I am not alone because unlike season 1, I kind of figured I could use a little help with this one. And so, yeah, I was going to turn this into a big, long, drawn-out introduction, but instead, folks, I present to you a little over 1,000 miles to my right. It's because it's not Ed Moore this time around. It's the other half of Boom Addiction. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Chris Partin.
Hello.
Shakes my under wobblies.
Oh, that's why I put on a long sleeve shirt. Gotta keep it all in.
So how you doing?
I'm doing well. I want to say thank you very much for having me be a part of this. Been a long time listener, big fan. So the crazy thing is this is the first time that you and I have actually spoke to one another. We have messaged and emailed and all kinds of other ways to talk to each other, but this is the actual first time we've been on a show together or anything verbally.
Well, yeah, and I think that because since I started reposting the old episodes of Just Another Fanboy, the ones that I lost that when I was doing Just Another Fanboy from 2006 to 2009, then I stopped podcasting for 10 years, came back and realized I lost most of them, but my Superman Super Show co-host Ed Moore had them all. So I had started kind of reposting them, getting them back up there and listening to them. And I feel like if not the very first piece of feedback I read over out on the show, or if it wasn't the first, it was within the first 2 or 3 was you.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So
yeah.
I was like, oh, holy crap, Chris Partin was there from the beginning.
I was there very early on.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. We all of us on the CGS forums always, we had to support each other. So we were always providing feedback at least once or twice,
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing we all screamed for. Just let us know what you think, please.
That's right. It's Derek Coward says it all the time that feedback is the currency of podcasters. I mean, not nowadays. Currency is the currency of podcasters.
I can get a little hey, that'd be great too. But it is what it is.
Back then, before it was anybody figured out the easy way to quote unquote monetize, because it's still not easy. I know people that have started, so many podcasts, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. I bet by episode 10, I'm going to be rolling in money. And it's like, but you're not, unless you're talking about something that nobody else is talking about and what everybody wants to hear about. They just don't know it yet, unless you can figure out what that is.
I remember in the very early days of Comic Addiction, managed to get a sponsor. I emailed, 50 or 60 people, and I got 2 sponsors and one of them was DCBS, who I think was sponsoring half of podcasting at the time.
Right.
And then I managed to get, for one like summer, I got Heroes Aren't Hard to Find to do Heroes Con. And that was it, because they were doing like a podcasting corner or something like that, where all of us were like hanging out literally in the back of the con, you know, but we were literally right across the aisle from David Finch.
Yep.
So it was just,
cool.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, you're not making any, and I didn't make any money off of those. They managed to, I think, pay the bills, as they say, to keep the show running, but that was about it.
So Ed in the IM points out that Joe Rogan no longer has the most popular podcast. So Ed, who does? I mean, well, we know it's me.
Yeah, I was going to say,
not
kind of goes without saying. Yeah. Maybe that's why I didn't say it.
Right. So you, as far as you and podcasting, you go back as far as I do. So, you, and also like me, you haven't been podcasting the entire time.
No.
Go off and on and take breaks and find inspiration, lose inspiration, find motivation, lose motivation. That's the way it goes.
And you and I both use Ed as the conduit between our shows, so that I think we keep him in business, or in the business. I mean, he only does 3 or 4 or 5. How many does he solo podcasts of his own? And then somehow he still finds time for you and I. So he's Terry is a godsend.
Not just you and me. He's podcasting. He does episodes every once in a while with Billy D for Monsters and Magazines.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
He's a generous dude.
Yes,
generous man. And in fact, one of the things that he and I talked about, because I told him that you and I were going to be doing this for season 2, talking about these 5 issues of Proof, which we haven't officially said yet, but we will here in a second. But I also mentioned to him that for season 3, I don't know why I said it like that. We, as in you, me, and Ed, can talk about ElfQuest.
Oh, very cool. I over here next to me, not planned at all, but
Oh, the new one,
the new hardcover.
Cool. Yeah. Let me see how thick it is.
It's not too
thick. Yeah.
I mean, this one has, I don't think I can see it real quick.
I mean, it's the first 5 issues.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, it's because the original quest is 20 issues. And so I know that when they did the 4 collections back in the 80s, the colorized Dawning Starblaze, those were 4 collections, and those were 5 issues each, I believe. So and that's kind of, I like doing kind of these short seasons. So if season 3 might be basically covering what's in that hardcover. So like 5 episodes doing the first 5 issues, and then
it's good stuff. I'll break out the black and white, the big oversized one, the Dark Horse put out, the big, so you can see Wendy Penny's pencils and whatnot.
I have those digitally. They did the like the ElfQuest, the complete ElfQuest. And I have most of them. I got them through Comixology because over like a 2 or 3 period time, every once in a while, they just all go on sale.
Oh yeah,
for like $2 each. And so it's like, oh, I gotta grab all these.
Yep.
But
And if you ever want to read ElfQuest, you can go to their website.
Oh, right.
They have all the issues for free.
Yeah, that's pretty
cool. That's one of the coolest things that, for a comic series, well, we won't go into all this, but for a series that's been around as long as it has, I mean, to basically give away your stuff for free, I mean, I guess you've made your money at that point.
Yeah.
Everything prior to 2013 is free. Okay.
Ed's over here schooling us in the YouTube chat.
He jumped on the website real quick just to make sure. He's doing his homework for us.
He's going to keep us on our toes, I think.
Yep. That's
So,
what he's there for.
Speaking of this show in season 2, where it's going to be 5 episodes for season 2, we're going to be looking at the first story arc of a comic book from 2007 that came out of Image Comics. It's called Proof. It was written by Alex Grecian with art by Riley Rossmo. They had done something before Proof, and I don't remember what it is.
Oh, now you have me curious.
Yeah, I don't remember what it. And I know that they did Rasputin at some point after Proof, which was
2014.
Pretty good. Yeah, but Alex Grecian, I learned after reading Proof, thanks to the Image message board, is a local guy to me.
Oh, really?
And have actually run into him at a Schlotsky's. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's crazy how many people I've learned since I started podcasting in 2006, how many fairly known comic book creators are local to me.
Yeah.
Andy Parks.
Yeah.
He lives maybe 40 minutes from me. The town he lives in, our high schools played basketball against each other. Tony Moore, I think. Not the Walking Dead Tony Moore. Is that his name?
Yeah.
The guy, the first artist on Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. He was in Kansas City, may still be, I don't know. Just a freaking ton of them. And Jason cool. Aaron went to a school in Lawrence, Kansas, and that's where I work.
Oh, okay.
He's it's crazy. And it says, I think it says that a lot of folks in the industry probably know, and I know that Scotty Young learned it because he talked about it when he moved from Chicago back to Tennessee. It's like, I don't have to live in New York where the publisher is. You don't have to do that anymore. He goes, so why would I live in Chicago where it's crazy expensive when I can go back to the wherever in Tennessee and I got a Walmart down the street, it's like, yeah.
When he was moving or looking for places to move, I reached out to him because he was looking in North Carolina too. And I reached out to him and his wife and tried. I was like, yeah, it'd be really cool if Scotty Young would, come move near, us. But like the furthest he wanted to get into North Carolina, I think was Asheville.
Yeah.
Which at the time wasn't that far away. But yeah, it's just, like I was like, oh man, it'd be really cool. Scotty Young, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he's awesome though. Good stuff. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing that as you sort of look out on the landscape of comic creators, how few of them live in places like, New York and LA and stuff like that, unless they're also doubling up their work, in other fields.
Right.
So it's, it may be advantageous for them to be there for those other things, but just for comic creation and stuff like that, shoot, you can do it anywhere you want.
Now I feel like there's somebody, and I don't remember the guy's name, but there's an artist, a comic artist who gets fairly regular work. I think he moved out of his house and just started traveling the country in like a really nice Winnebago, and he does all his art digitally, and and just
I would see if you can do that, if you can, for me, like my wife and I, we never could do it because we've had that conversation. Like I would love to do that kind of thing because my job allows me to do that kind of remote work. But to be sort of an artist, to be able to travel the country and just take in everything, that can really inspire your work. To do something different. So that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, just constantly having your scenery change, basically.
You can actually eat at all the states, best food ever, places. Like, which is where I would go. I would definitely like, where's the best burger? Where's the best sushi?
Yeah. And then of course look up where the nearest comic book store is.
Yes, and that actually is the thing I do when I travel.
Yeah, me
I
too.
make sure
Yep.
I hit up a local shop,
Yep.
and I can't leave there. It's not a written rule or anything like that, but I cannot leave there without buying 5 or 6 things, like $20 for the stuff. Like I need to make sure I put some kind of currency in there for at least walking around and talking. Because most shop owners, or whoever's working behind the counter, they'll just sit there and just chat it up with it. At least all the ones I've been to over the years. So I've met some really cool shops and stuff. At least in the Southeast, I haven't gone too much further than that. So.
Yeah. Well, the last time I left the area was a year ago. My daughter, the one that still lives with us, she's really into Hatsune Miku, a Japanese, what are they called? Vocaloids. Anyway, so basically it's like they're from Japan, but they come to America. They had come to America and they were playing live shows. They play live shows in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And so the band is all live. Musicians, they're rocking, they're playing, but the singer, and there's various characters apparently, but the Hatsune Miku is one of them. And she's a hologram.
Oh,
and
really?
her voice, her songs, her melodies is all, it's like all, I don't know how it all works, but
it's kind of like gorillas.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. But we went to, they had a show in Denver, and so she really wanted to see it, and she helped pay for a lot of it. So we went to Denver. Of course, while we were there, it's like, I have to go visit Mile High Comics.
Oh, for sure.
Seeing their ads in comic books since I was a little kid.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the the only time I've been out of the area for a long time.
Didn't you post some pictures about that?
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember those. Yep.
Yeah. Mile High Comics is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a cool looking store. Yeah, that's one I've wanted to go to, but I don't think I'm ever. Well, I don't say ever. Never. I never say never, but it's really hard for me to see myself get there. But we still try to plan every year going to San Diego, but we never do.
Right.
We talk about it here at the house like constantly.
Yeah.
Like one of these days. And my daughter is she's really wanting to go check out California. My wife's been out there a number of times for work and stuff like that. So it's like, one of these days we'll get out there, and since I'm not a huge person who likes to fly that much, I can definitely see myself going through Denver.
Yep. Denver's well, driving through Denver is some scary stuff. Oh my God.
Well, maybe not then.
There were a couple of moments there, especially the night of the concert, going from the hotel to the place, to the venue, and then back, dropping the girls off, and then going back to the hotel, and then going back to pick them up.
Yep.
The highway, there's like 5-6 lane highways that circle the frickin' city.
Yeah.
And when I say 6 lanes, that's one direction. So we're talking like a total of 12 lanes.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But these people just zoom in and out of each other, jump in and on and off the freeway. And it's scary. There were a couple of moments where I'm like, I'm never going to drive ever. Cause I'm getting to that age where I don't like to drive at night, And so, that was
just tuck the hat down, put the glasses on tight, just put the windows down and just go.
White knuckling it,
we'll get there eventually.
So, all right. So back to Proof. So this was a comic that was published by Image Comics. It ran for 28 issues from October of 2007 to September of 2010. And then it came back for 5 issues as Proof Endangered. And that ran from December of 2010 to May of 2011.
Yep.
The first arc of Proof is called Goat Sucker. That's what we're going to be talking about during this season. 5 issues, 5 episodes. And here is how the trade is described on image.com. So you get kind of an idea of what the comic's about if you've never heard of it before. If you believe in monsters, Proof doesn't leave urban legends where it finds them. Bigfoot wears a suit to the office. Fairies devour anyone in sight. A lonely monster wears human skins for company. The hit starts here. That's the description of the first trade.
And none of that is wrong.
Right. But I think the key thing, and they say Bigfoot once in that description. I think that's kind of the key selling point of this book. And I'm going to talk about that a bit more because we're going to get to a little section here where you and I are going to talk about finding proof, basically. And we'll talk a little bit about that at that point. But I want to ask you a couple of quick questions first.
Sure.
So proof, it's about a Bigfoot. Okay. Not only a Bigfoot, but a Bigfoot who works for the government, right? Or a secret government agency who is tasked to basically intervene in situations that involve cryptids, and not to hunt down and kill them. That's kind of a last resort. That's what I like about this series. They're not tasked to just get out there and start killing some monsters. Because not a lot of these cryptids are not monsters. They just want to live their lives. And so they will bring them onto this preserve to keep them safe. I think that's pretty cool. But the first question that always springs to mind when I'm talking to anybody about this series is, Chris, do you believe in Bigfoot?
Do I believe in Bigfoot? I think you and I have had this conversation maybe 10 years ago because of the Jason Howard? Maybe it wasn't Jason Howard, but there was a Sasquatch original graphic novel that came out through Viper Comics. And I think you and I got talking about that at one point. Do I believe in Bigfoot? I do to a degree. It is a thing that does not keep me up at night, but at the same time, I will sit there on YouTube and go down a rabbit hole for an hour, just like, all right, folks, show me what you got. And some stuff is ridiculous, and some stuff is convincing. And there's too many. There are too many woods out there. Too many trees out there to be hidden in, to say no.
Yeah. And there's so many easy ways nowadays to fake any of that. So it's really hard. I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like, I want to believe in that Bigfoot is real. I want to believe that with every fiber of my being. The older I get, the less I feel like we're ever gonna find proof that Bigfoot ever existed. But you and I are around the same age, so I'm going to assume because you gravitated to a book like Proof, and because we grew up in the same era, that you're like me, kind of a Bigfoot fanatic.
I can be. I have been in the past. Yeah.
When we were kids, Bigfoot was.
Oh, it was the thing.
Bigfoot was everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like there were always there always seemed to be shows on a lot, like these unsolved mysteries type shows that would always purport to show you the latest. You know, they show you the basic, you know, the Patterson Gimlin film from, you know, the original where it's supposed to be a female and she's walking and she looks at the camera. You know, everybody has seen it.
Yeah.
But then they'd show some other very blurry, shaky stuff. But you also had, I mean, Bigfoot was on the $6 Million Man.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a character.
Real enough.
Yeah.
That they were like, yeah, this is a thing we should have on the show.
Yeah. And he wasn't just, I mean, he wasn't like a main character, but he appeared in like 4 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was somewhat of a reoccurring character. Now he was a bionic Bigfoot. Oh, yeah. And I had the 12-inch action figure as a kid, and it had it was all plastic.
Yep.
Like the 12-inch Chewbacca figure from the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it had the chest. You could see that there was a plate that you could remove from the chest. Ooh. And so underneath it was a sticker that was all the bionic stuff under the fur. but beyond that, Bigfoot had his own TV show in the 70s called Bigfoot and Wild Boy, in
Oh, I don't
which
think I've ever heard of that.
you go look for it
I
at
don't
some
know.
point because
Yeah.
it's some funny looking stuff. It's like I said, it's the 70s. I think it was supposed to be made with kids in mind.
Okay.
But I just watched some of it not that long ago, and
Yeah.
I can't remember now, but I feel like the idea was supposed to be that there was this kid, Wild Boy, who was abandoned in the woods, and Bigfoot either raised him or just befriended him, and they've become best friends. And so it's like Bigfoot and then Wild Boy. So this wild kid with a loincloth, he looked like Commandy because he was
may
blonde.
have seen this.
But the guy
more you're saying it, the more I'm like, I think,
yeah,
you know, you got to rattle the rust off. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I guarantee you, I bet you've seen it.
I'll have to go look it up. Yeah. Yeah.
But the guy that played Wild Boy, okay, it's a character named Wild Boy. I guarantee you the guy was at least 35 years old.
Yeah.
You know, did not look like a kid at all. But the couple things that I watched recently, it felt like kind of one of those shows that was like an Incredible Hulk. Yeah. It's just every week they, you know, traveling around and getting into adventures. They just happen to be Bigfoot and a kid raised in the woods.
Show. You know? How did they get around? Yeah, they just did. That's just the thing, man.
Yeah. So being someone who, I mean, when I say Bigfoot fanatic, I don't mean like
it was in the pop culture. I mean,
yeah,
that was
exactly.
The 70s and 80s. I mean, you had friggin' Henry and the Hendersons. Yeah. I mean, you've got, you know, stuff going on that it's so like nowadays. If you said, hey, we're going to do a show or have Bigfoot in it, people are going to like, is he going to be scary?
Yeah.
You know, is he going to kill people? Because that'd be cool. Yeah. But if not, like, no, it's just he's just a thing out there in the woods, you know, or something like that. You know, that's not going to happen. But back then, it was in the culture. I mean, we all wanted to believe.
Exactly. And I, as a kid, you know, back then, I loved all of it. And at the same time, Bigfoot scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I would, every time there was any type of special on in the evenings that would, like I said, purport to show footage, grainy film shown, you know, of Bigfoot captured and, you know, in the woods and stories from people who encountered Bigfoot. I always had to watch it. And I always get nightmares afterward. And I had a reoccurring nightmare as a kid that I was at my grandmother's house. I was in her bathroom, sitting on the toilet, doing my thing. And I look up, and in this dream, the bathroom has like 10, 12-foot high ceilings.
That's a fancy
and there's
house.
A window on the wall that's a good 8-9 feet up. Yeah. And I look up at the window, and Bigfoot's outside looking at me through the window. And I'm like, ah! And, you know, I used to have this nightmare all the time. And yet at the same time, I just couldn't stop with Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why Chewbacca is my favorite Star Wars character. I mean, he's basically Bigfoot.
Yeah. For sure.
More of a dog-faced Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I grew up reading, just reading. I just read. That's all I did. But read as a kid, you know, I mean, kids have book fairs these days and stuff like that. But I feel like the book fairs that we had growing up, you know, make current ones pale in comparison. Because we could walk away with like 10 books for like $20 or whatever. Although $20 was a lot back then. But, you know, I used to buy all of these like little, you know, paperbacks of, you know, anthology stories of just scary things.
Yeah.
And I can't remember any of them off, you know, top of my head, but they were half of them, or of all of them, at least in half of the book, there were some kind of encounter with Bigfoot, some kind of Sasquatch story of some kind, of hunters out in their cabin having rocks thrown at it at night, or crazy screams in the night that they would go after, you know, and all these kind of things. And reading it, you know, especially as a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, that kind of stuff just swirling around, like it's either gonna scare you or it's gonna make you like be I don't know, desensitized to it is probably not the right word, but I grew more to the desensitized version of it. Like there's very little that scares me, and it's probably because of Bigfoot and those kind of stories. But
Bigfoot.
yeah, it's like I wish I could see Bigfoot, just give him a big high five. But I don't think I'm tall enough. But yeah, it's just those kind of things growing up, man. I'm glad you asked me that question because it has brought a flood of memories back of all those kind of things. Yeah,
So
I love that kind of stuff.
But yeah, Bigfoot was just a big part of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it was a big part of your childhood.
Yeah.
So fast forward. Do you remember where you were? Do you remember what you were doing? Do you remember the circumstances behind when you first encountered the comic book proof?
I vaguely remember at the time I had been doing Comic Addiction, the website, the review website version of it. We hadn't been doing the podcast that long, but had been doing the review site since I've been writing reviews since 1999.
Nice.
And so my brain, and it's still hard to turn off, but I was always paying attention to first issues and stuff like that, things that are coming out. I was on Diamond's website, every week looking at the shipping list to see what new stuff was coming out, stuff to cover for the website. Back then I had, 10 people writing on the website. And so we were constantly in these conversations and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I remember just sort of in a group conversation about what we were going to be covering in the next week or two, proof being brought up, and an image, it being an image. It was being done by two guys who we didn't know. We were kind of curious, especially if you get a first issue, of an unknown group, or unknown to us, talents that you kind of want to check it out and just check it out. But it's one of those things when you see, Rossmo's art doing proof rock, it's jarring. And so seeing the cover art, maybe some preview pages or something like that, it was a thing that we were all kind of like, yeah, we definitely need to check this out. We definitely need to cover this. And when the book got a little further into it, we definitely brought it up on the show a lot. I interviewed Alex Grecian, during the Thunderbird story arc. But yeah, I mean, I remember as far as that goes, just sort of, it was, it wasn't one of those things like, Death of Superman or something like that, where I saw it on the news or something. But it was something because I was going to the comic shop 2 or 3 times a week, and talking to people and, and paying a very OCD level amount of time with the shipping list and previews and stuff like that. Yeah, I can't tell you, what day of the week it was or something like that, but I can definitely remember seeing those, the cover art, a couple pages, and just sort of being more blown away by Rossmo's art and going, well, this will be interesting, especially if you're going to have something like Bigfoot in it, because he's in a suit. And it's like, all right, let's see what it's going to be, So yeah, as far as that goes, that's kind of how I remember it.
Mine's a little similar. I had probably started podcasting a couple of months prior. So every single weekday, I had this morning routine when I would get to work, and this is a different job. I'm not the place I'm working now. If any of my bosses are listening, my previous job, I'd come in every morning and I had a certain routine online. And one of the things that I did every morning was I went to places like Newsarama and Comic Book Resources to read the latest news, see what was coming out, because not only was I doing a show in which I talked about the books that came out every week and every month, I was collecting comics, and so I was like you. I poured over the digital online previews catalog basically, and was always trying to find stuff that maybe but I feel like that part of me came a little bit later in my time with Just Another Fanboy the first time around. But I just remember coming across on Newsarama a preview for this first issue, and I'd never heard of it before. I'd never heard of Alex Grecian. I'd never heard of Riley Rossmo. But the first thing I noticed, of course, was that cover that had Bigfoot in a suit. So immediately I'm like, okay, you've got Bigfoot. You've already got me hooked.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it doesn't hurt that the art looks pretty goddamn good. But you've got Bigfoot in it. He's the main character. That's usually all I need. But you've put him in a suit. So now I'm intrigued. And so I looked at the preview pages before I read anything, any of the accompanying text. Because there was a whole article. I think they'd had a lot to say about it. But I looked at the preview pages first. And the preview pages, at least a couple of them, were the scene in this issue where Proof is in the locker room with the other guy. I can never remember his name. Walter or something.
Walter,
But my first immediate thought was shows like Starsky and Hutch. There are always scenes of Starsky and Hutch. Any of those buddy cop pictures of the two cops in the locker room, towels wrapped around themselves, or talking about the case or whatever, and cracking wise. And I was seeing the exact same thing in the preview pages, except it was a freaking Bigfoot. And I said, all right, that you'd already had me sold, but I will be canceling something on my list to ensure that I get this.
I need to make room. I need to make room for this.
Because it was an intriguing concept. I've always enjoyed when people take Bigfoot, make it into a character, but make it into a good guy. There's plenty of Bigfoot stories out there of him ripping people to shreds. I don't care about any of that.
Do something different.
So I had to get this, and it ended up being, and you did listen to Just Another Fanboy back then. I talked about it a lot on that show because it was my number one favorite comic at the time. And then it blew me away when I learned that the guy that wrote it lived about 30-40 minutes from me. And it was pretty neat. So
I wonder if I'm gonna see him. And you did.
And one day my wife and I are in a Schlotsky's, and I said, I think that's Alex Grecian. Because I'd met him. We have a couple of small local cons around here every year, and I had met him at one in Lawrence. I talked to him a couple times, but with me, it's like the only time I had ever seen him. I'd seen him a number of times, but always at a convention. So seeing him at a Schlotsky's, my mind wouldn't. I'm pretty sure that's the guy I always see surrounded by comics, but he's not surrounded by comics, so I'm not sure. But so I said, I think that's Alex Grecian. So she kind of went, well, go say something to him. And I said, well, I don't know if it's him. I don't want to. I think it is. And she just went, Alex Grecian. And he goes, oh, and turned around. And I said, hey, what's up?
You like ducked. I don't know what's happening.
And in fact, I had mentioned before we started recording that originally I was going to do this season alone, just like I did with the first season. And I had actually recorded an entire first episode, the cold opening of which I used for this episode. But when I finished it, when I did the first episode, I sent it to Alex and I said, hey, do you have anything you want to add as far as any behind the scenes stuff? And he sent me a couple things, and I started putting a bunch of show notes together with all that. And then I realized that I was never going to have time to actually sit down and do any more recordings by myself. I was never going to be motivated. And so I'm using you, Chris. You're my motivation.
That's what I'm here for.
You're forcing me to do this. Just like Ed forces me to talk about Superman every day.
It's the burden that we bear. So. But he is a, and I haven't like spoken it, like I did an interview with him long time ago. An episode that actually I did it with a friend of mine who was a huge Proof fan at the time. Again, this was during the Thunderbird story arc, so it was just the arc that's after this arc that we'll be talking about. But he was a huge Proof fan and wanted. I was like, well, hey, I'm reaching out to Grecian and we'll do an interview. He's already agreed to it. Why don't you just come on the show and listen in, interact, do whatever? Because I don't know how to interview anybody. So it's just going to be a mess to begin with. So it'll at least be funny. And hopefully. And we spoke for a while. I forget how long it was, but it was an episode that I was super excited for because this buddy of mine who was writing on the website that I was working on at the time, got to do something that he didn't normally get to do. Now he lives in New York now, so he runs into these kind of people all the time now. But back then, that was not the case, and so he was very nervous. I was nervous just in general, but the episode never aired. We never were able to post it because now as a podcaster, if you're not into podcasting, you double check things, make sure your audio is right, your settings are right, you're recording, you do all these little things beforehand. And we did. Everything was working just right. But for some reason, when I went back to edit the show to post it, nothing was there. The file was still like there was still data being used. So it was like, 50 megs or whatever it was. But there was something there. It was just like white noise.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to Rich, who's my buddy, and Alex Grecian. And I said, hey, look, I apologize. We're not going to be able to post this. Something happened. I don't know what happened. Everything else on my computer is fine, just this one file. And I remember Alex Grecian's response was more like, well, maybe it was one of those cryptids got into your laptop or something like that. And just like maybe we shared too much. He was like playing along with it with the series. I was like, I like this guy. This guy's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've always enjoyed him. And yeah, it'd be really cool to meet up with him one time. So
have you ever read any of his books?
I have. I have his first two books, and I am, with age, have become a slower and slower reader, and we have not figured out what that's some mental block I have. But I have downloaded many of them on audiobook. It's just that's the only way I can do books now.
Yep.
And it's just ones I haven't gotten to yet. But yeah, I was a big fan of his first two.
Yeah.
I just need to. I think he just put one out here in this last year or so.
He did. I've also read his first, maybe 3 or 4. Because the first books he did were part of that Scotland Murder Squad series, basically, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, recently he put out kind of I don't know if it's a direct sequel or just in the same world as Red Rabbit, I think was the one.
Oh yeah.
Before that, which I read that one. I haven't read the new one yet, but
okay.
Red Rabbit was really good. It's
cool.
A Western, but with witches. So it's pretty
better.
Cool. So a weird Western, I think some folks would call that, but yeah. But we're not here to talk about Alex's books. We're here to talk about his comics. More specifically, we're going to talk about the very first issue of Proof. This was published by Image Comics on October the 24th, 2007. It was written by Alex Grecian with art by Riley Rossmo. The colors were by Tyler Jenkins. The issue is separated into there's a main story that is called Goat Sucker, part 1 of 5. And then there's a backup story called Ginger Brown's Big Week. And I don't really like to call it a backup story because it still ties in. It ties in.
Yeah, it does.
So I don't know. It's a backup story, but we're going to talk about the main story first. I'll give y'all a synopsis, and then Chris and I will go into a deep dive into the main story, and then we'll do the backup story in the same fashion. All right. So this is what happened in the main story, Goat Sucker, in issue number 1. It's a Thursday on Minnesota's Kakekabik Trail when Jeanette and Kevin Levy set out for a simple hike. Jeanette has her camera with her, and she hunts for the perfect shot as Kevin wrestles with a pebble in his shoe. And so, having no patience for her husband and his stone-filled footwear, Jeanette veers off map into an uncharted cave. Moments later, from within the darkness of the cave, a blinding flash and a blood-curdling scream shatter the forest's calm. And then there is silence. The next day, deep in the wilds of the Pacific Northwest, soldiers with automatic rifles chase what appears to be Bigfoot through the trees. Soon the monster is caught as brightly colored paintball rounds pepper its thick fur, and the creature raises its hands in mock surrender. But this ain't your typical Sasquatch shakedown. This Bigfoot has a name, and that name is John Proofrock, though everybody calls him Proof. Oh, and he's a government agent. Did I mention that? He's a government agent. He works for a secret task force called the Lodge that investigates cryptids and the unexplained. And this little chase through the trees, well, that was just a training exercise. Back at Lodge headquarters, Proof, now showered and scrubbed clean of paint, slips into his custom-tailored suit and meets his new partner, Special Agent Ginger Brown, a jittery FBI transplant who, when first coming face-to-face with the shaggy giant, instinctively draws her weapon until Director Leander White calmly intervenes and then debriefs the pair on their first case, the disappearance of Jeanette and Kevin Levy. It seems that a tour guide recovered Jeanette's camera at the cave entrance, and the final shot shows a grainy, glowing-eyed monster, which Director White explains is a chupacabra, also known as the goat sucker, or the mocha vampire, or sometimes the Mexican Bigfoot. Meanwhile, back at the scene of her disappearance, I said that wrong. That's all right, because I'll say it again, and that's what editing's for.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, back at the scene of her disappearance, Jeanette Levy reappears. She's bruised, she's naked, but for her underwear, and she bears a long, jagged tear running across the top of her left buttock, with crude stitches holding the wound together that look haphazard, almost frantic. It's bloodless, unsettling, and super creepy due to the fact that there are dark tufts of brown fur that peek out from beneath the stitches. It's a mystery that, for now, will have to remain unsolved as the scene fades to black. Chris, what'd you think?
I think the thing that stood out to me the most is the stitches, because like everything else was kind of like, okay, cool, yeah. Like you're into the story and everything, and then you see that visual, like it's coming.
Yeah,
like it's sort of not telegraph. If you know anything about chupacabras and all this other stuff, you kind of know what's coming, and yeah. So when I saw the stitches for that one little sliver of a panel, I was like, oh god, because
that's the thing. I had no idea. I didn't know much about chupacabras. I've always been into Bigfoot, but other than maybe the Loch Ness Monster, I really haven't done a lot of delving into other cryptids all that much. Yeah. So yeah, I knew that there was something not quite right with her, but I assumed at first that it was, she's escaped. Yay.
Well, I mean, you get the whole thing earlier in the issue where the hunter and the dog, the things like looking for Gulliver and everything, that's talking about the skin wearing, and all this other stuff. And so you're kind of like, I didn't necessarily relate the two as being the same creature, but the thought of something wearing skin. So when you see the stitching, you're like, oh crap, that is something wearing her skin.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, oh my god. And over, I don't know, originally when I first read the book that I realized, oh, that's chupacabra. but at the same time, over the years that has become very aware of what's going on there. But the issue itself is if you don't know anything, I mean, you don't have to know anything about anything going in.
If you don't know anything, you're not going to enjoy the issue.
Yeah, you should just quit and just go home.
Because you're not going to be able to read.
But yeah, so it's a good issue. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that stitching thing just kind of made me go,
Yeah, I think they did a really good job kind of introducing everybody, and kind of they do a really good job just setting everything up. This is, I think, a really good first issue. It introduces you to everybody that you need to know right now.
Yeah.
They don't waste a lot of time, because there are characters that will show up in this arc later. A certain character that continues on with the book that we won't meet until maybe the second. I think it's the next issue.
It's the second issue. Yeah.
Elvis Chestnut is his name.
Yep.
But they could have wasted time by introducing him here, but they didn't. They just they stuck to the story that needed to be told. I think they'd have a nice tight little setup here that's leaves you really wanting to find out what the crap is going on.
Well, and I think the good part is you share the, that there's something creepy going on, a monster, just a weird person, living out, you could just be some dude out there who's just deranged, or you have no idea through this issue. You have no idea. I mean, the issue is called Goatsucker, but at the same time, if you really want to try and put on your thinking cap while you're reading this thing. But at the same time, I think introducing Prufrock and introducing the Lodge the way it did, your thought is but this dude in a suit, that I keep seeing, why is he being chased? You're starting to have all these questions, and then they do that quick reveal, oh no, it's just a turning scene. That kind of thing got me as far as oh, we're going way back. This is we're not jumping into him already established, but then we actually are, but this is what they have to do to be prepared. And so it was kind of the little switcheroo, not necessarily, not a big one, but it was one of those little switcheroos that was kind of fun to read. It was oh, okay, cool. And then you realize, oh, he is super down to earth. He is super friendly, and everything like that.
Yeah.
You do, realize down the road, you will realize how much of an effort that he puts into being this, friendly version of a creature, and everything. So it's, it's oh, okay, well, it's just Yogi Bear. It's just he's not any kind of threat or anything. I do like the fact that when Ginger gets to the Lodge, the very first thing that Leland's hey, we're going to need your bullets.
Right.
He didn't ask for a gun.
Yeah.
He just said, we just need your bullets. And and you don't really think about it. You're well, that's a weird request, but okay, sure. And they establish, hey, we're, not only are we a United States agency, but we're also a Canadian agency.
Yep.
And so, we kind of split the lines or whatever, which is kind of an interesting thing that we'll see stuff down the road. But taking the bullets was making you as a reader go, all right, that's coming back. There's some reason for that. And then when she immediately starts popping off, when John walks in the room, you're okay, well, that makes sense. But it's so funny how all the characters, or not all the characters, but some of the characters make those comments to her later on, well, I mean, I guess they could have told you,
Right.
No, they really want to see what your reaction is. What kind of reaction do you think you're going to get? I'm going to start shooting.
That's not something, I mean, really, unless you're born into that world,
right?
That's not something you can really prepare somebody for.
No.
It's sometimes it is just best just to throw them in the deep end and see what happens.
I mean, someone walked up to you, Steven, no, I've got a thing that we're going to talk about. You're going to see something that you may not be prepared for. And so your mind's already racing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, so we're just going to leave it at that. We're going to just leave it at that. Do you have a weapon by this?
Yes.
Just, you're going to need those bullets. You can keep the weapon. If you want to Superman throw the gun at him, that's fine too. He's not going to look. Who's he? What's going on? And then freaking dude walks in the room, and you're just like, oh my god, yeah. So there's no way you can prepare for that. So, but it was a good interaction. I do, we know John has had a partner before. And so it's like, how many I kind of thought, because during the locker room scene, you're kind of like, you're finding a little bit about him. And I'm like, well, how many partners has he had? Like this one apparently got promoted, so he left. So, but how many others, it's kind of that thing. Like, is this sort of like a fraternity initiation? I was like, oh, let's see who gets scared the most, when they see John for the first time. Is it that, or is it, just with his partners? Everybody else is sort of cool about it. I don't know. So it's those little things that have always raced on the back of my mind when I read this book. It's like, I feel like we're missing some of the behind the scenes stuff that would just make it a little more not a little more entertaining, sort of almost insulting, but just adding you know what? I should have written this.
Right.
I would have.
You just listened to me.
Yeah, everything would have been just fine. But you wouldn't have a TV show coming out or anything like that. Finally, but it would have been for me. I always like those little extra things, and so I would have had fun with it. So, but Chris is gonna stop putting his foot in his mouth now.
Well, let's get into the issue. Let's go into a bit of a deep dive. We'll go through each page of this main story, and we'll kind of step through the story beat by beat and talk about the various things that stick out to us and our favorite moments and junk. And let's just start with the front cover, the cover for this issue. It's I'm a big fan of this cover. I think the cover says a lot about this book. Not something that I noticed until maybe reading the series a couple of times, that I realized that maybe the way that Proof and Ginger are represented on this cover, there's a bit of deeper meaning to it. But we have you've got Proof with Ginger standing in front of him. She comes up to his chest. She doesn't really even come up to his nipples, basically. No. That's how tall he is. There are, I don't know what these are supposed to represent around them. The first time I saw this cover, before I knew what the exactly what the series was going to be about, I assumed that they were zombies. They could be dead bodies. I don't know what they are. But Proof is in his suit and tie, and he's holding what appears to be like a femur bone, like a leg bone of some sort. Ginger's standing in front of him. She's got a pistol in one hand. She's holding it kind of casually. She's got a shirt and tie on. She's not wearing the jacket. Her shirt's untucked. Her tie is very loose, and the first couple of buttons on her shirt are unbuttoned,
showing that she's a loose cannon.
Well,
can't be contained by the man.
That's the thing is that what I kind of realized after reading this again is I think what we're looking at here, this show, there's Proof. He's a Bigfoot. He's a monster, but he's got on his nice, clean, crisp suit. It's impeccably tailored. It fits him perfectly. His tie is tight. The front, the buttons on his jacket are buttoned. He looks like he should be at a wedding, or somewhere like that. Whereas Ginger, like I said, she's got her sleeves rolled up. She's not wearing the jacket. Her tie's hanging loose around her neck. I think that's showing, because we do learn later in the series that Proof is kind of I don't want to use the word priss, but he's really into the way he looks. Looking good, dressing stylish. Grooming. He's really into grooming. And Ginger may be kind of a slob. I think that's I don't know if that's what Riley meant when he put this cover together. And I tell you what, I am not one to read into stuff like that. I usually miss it 103 times out of 100, I miss any kind of deep hidden meanings, but
there's a sharp contrast between the two characters.
yeah.
And I mean, that's purposely done, obviously. I mean, he's the tall dude in a clean, crisp suit, well manicured and stuff like that. And she's the short female who is not disheveled, but is not, she's not, she doesn't need all of that he does.
Yeah.
And so they're literal polar opposites of one another. And so when you see that, if you've watched, any kind of buddy, partner, anything with, especially with law enforcement or whatever, they're always polar opposites of one another.
Yeah.
Or at least those are the more entertaining stories. And so you're getting that like immediately before you know anything else about this book, that these two are opposites of one another.
Yeah.
And that can create all kinds of story opportunities, all kinds of banter between the two of them. So you're getting that early on. Now, having seen like all the skeletons and bodies and stuff like that, yeah, I had zero clue what we were getting ready to get into based off of just all that, other than the fact that that it didn't bother them. They looked super comfortable and were ready to go. So.
Yeah, it's basically that tells the person who's just looking at the cover that this is going to be some monster stuff. Yeah. There's probably going to be some blood and there's more of a horror book.
Yep.
But yeah, that's I mean, that's a good catch to point out, is how opposite, not just from the obvious, he's a Bigfoot, she's a human.
Yeah.
But just by the state of their dress, you could almost say maybe that looking at the way he's dressed and looking at the way she's dressed and the state of their clothes, that maybe psychologically she's a little more put together than he is. She's comfortable. She's comfortable with the way she is. She's comfortable with her body and how she looks. Whereas he has always got to try to look.
Yep.
Because obviously he's probably very self-conscious about being a Bigfoot.
Oh yeah.
Amongst humans. And at the very top of the cover, I like the you've got the title of the comic, Proof, but right above that, if you believe in monsters, comma, you need ... and then the title of the comic, Proof.
Yeah.
I like that.
Now, also one thing that we need to make note of, just with this series in general, I mean, obviously we've talked about Grecian and Rossmo. We need to talk about, Tyler Jenkins, who is the colorist on this particular book. But as we'll say, I ran an Image podcast for a long time, so I paid a lot of attention to Tyler Jenkins during this time and afterwards. But doing, he became a very successful writer and artist. Peter Panzerfaust, was one of I think it was his first solo book. He did that like 2012-ish. Mm-hmm. So he did that. It was really good. He did Snowblind for Boom, which was, if you talk to Ed's a big fan of that. Grass Kings was the other one at Boom. So just with him alone, coming out of this book as well. I mean, Riley and Alex had a lot of success. Black Badge, as I was saying in the chat, I always forget that one. That's the one that you're a big fan of. But you get people like Tyler Jenkins, who comes out of this, who was kind of an unknown at the time and does a lot of successful stuff afterwards. Fiona Staples, not in this particular run, but she's in the next story arc. She does like issues 6, 7, and 8. She obviously comes out of this and does a lot of other work and everything, and becomes the artist on Saga. And so this series, if you look at the creatives, and there's not a ton of them, but if you look at the creatives in this book as it goes on for these 28 issues, you get some pretty notable people who are either just getting started in comics, or this is sort of the groundwork for more work that they get noticed and attached to. So, but yeah, every time I see Tyler Jenkins' name on this cover, I'm always like, yep, that guy, that Peter Panzerfaust is Probably still one of my favorite books that he's ever worked on. But yeah, so I don't even want to ever just look at the writer artist. There's so many other people that get credited in here, from letters and we get other writers and stuff like that along the way. But yeah.
So to interrupt the episode real quick, just be aware we have. I mentioned the cats that live in the house.
I was going to say, is it cat time?
There are stray cats that live around the house outside. And one of them recently had kittens, and apparently one or more of the kittens are out on the porch, which is right there. And so my wife and daughter are like, "Oh, look at the kittens!" So that may intrude a little bit. But because we live in such a small house, I tell them all the time, if I'm recording something or if I'm recording with somebody, you know what? Interrupt us. I don't care.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want you huddled in your room going, I can't go out there because he's recording. No. Yep. Just interrupt.
Live your life, man. Live your life.
It's a lot that you can edit out if necessary. All right. So let's get into this issue. Yep. We'll get to the first page of the story, and that's where we get the kind of the prologue of the story, where we meet Jeanette and Kevin Levy hiking the Kakekabik Trail in Minnesota. I had to watch a video where somebody was pronouncing the Kakekabik Trail.
Oh, that's pretty good pronunciation, because I don't think I've ever really known what it actually sounds like. So
I had to say it out loud a number of times. I got it out of my system and figured out how to say it properly when I recorded the first version of the episode by myself. Kakekabik.
I appreciate your homework.
Well, you're welcome. Yes. It's because I love my listeners. Jeanette and Kevin, we're assuming they're husband and wife. She's taking pictures. He is complaining because he's got a pebble in his shoe, and she doesn't seem to care that he's got a pebble in his shoe. I don't think Jeanette and Kevin get along all that well.
No, not in the least.
I like to invent backstories for characters like this. I like to imagine that maybe they've been married for a number of years. Their marriage is on the rocks. And so they've taken this little vacation to maybe try to spark the romance again or something. Uh-oh, I got two kittens.
No. Oh my gosh.
Oh, and a socks, basically.
Baby socks. They've named it boots already.
No. I don't want to hold one right now. No.
Oh, ouch. Okay. Sorry, thank you.
Anyway, I like to imagine that this is part of a vacation that they're trying to use to help fix their marriage, spend some time together, do things together. And obviously hiking the Kakekabik Trail was the wrong thing, because they don't seem to be enjoying each other's company.
No.
She's upset that he is slowing her down. He's upset that she doesn't seem to care that he's got a rock in his shoe and it hurts. So he sits down to take the pebble out of his shoe, and then she walks off on up the trail alone. We also get on this first page our first of something that we see throughout this series, these little information boxes called cryptoids. And they remind me a lot of, do you remember Pop-Up Video?
Oh yeah.
On VH1, where you watch a music video and these little balloons would pop up to give you information, fun facts and trivia about the video and the artist and the song and what was happening in the video and stuff like that. That's kind of what these cryptoids remind me of. And on this page, the cryptoid just simply says, an animal is called a cryptid if there is no physical evidence of it, despite multiple sightings. And so if someone were to hand you this page all by itself, when you get to that bottom panel, because there's basically just 4 wide panels on this page, it's that 4th panel that makes you realize something weird's going to happen. That's that,
this is called foreshadowing.
Right. You almost expect like some spooky music to play under that 4th panel. So Jeanette goes off on her own. By the 2nd page, she finds the cave. She goes into the cave. She yells to Kevin to hurry up. She goes into the cave. and then we see a flash of light come from the cave. Her scream comes from the cave, and then apparently Kevin shows up.
Yeah.
Right at the very end of this page. Jeanette, did you say something? And then that's the end of the scene.
He was in a rush, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was like, I'll get there in a minute. Get my shoes on.
Right. I like how this second page is put together, especially the bottom third of it, those panels, the way, because this is around the time where they started to use less and less panels to tell a story.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to use the term decompressed storytelling because that's not really what this is.
No.
But it does, when I'm reading like Golden Age Superman books for the Superman Super Show, and then I read like 70s Conan comics for Hither Came Conan, and then I read something like this, I'm always just like, there's like 4 panels on this page.
Right, yeah.
There's usually like 9,
Like,
with Superman, there's like 12 on some of those Golden Age pages. But this one, it's split into thirds. There's basically 3 rows of panels. The top row has 2 panels. The second row is just 1 long wide panel. And then the third row, which actually takes up half of the page, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. They all show the cave. And I like the progression of the panels with Jeanette going into the cave. She's going into the cave. The third panel has her in the cave. We see the flash, but the panel is a bit smaller than the other panels, and it's askew.
Yep.
And then the panel after that's even smaller, and it's more askew, and that's where we see the scream and Kevin, who apparently shows up. I totally missed the fact that Kevin showed back up.
Oh, really?
The first time I read this way back then, because when I read this again for the show, I was like, wait a minute, is that Kevin saying that? I thought he just, I wondered why we never saw Kevin again. I remember feeling at some point, why haven't we heard from the husband? Why isn't he worried about Jeanette? I never noticed, because we will see here in a bit the inside of the cave and the skin. And I guess I never picked up on the fact that there were 2 different skin suits there at one point. So but that's how this issue opens.
I like the storytelling of those panels because it draws your eye closer, even though the panels are smaller, it's drawing your attention tighter to it.
Yeah.
So because you're like, something is happening.
Yeah.
Something not right is happening. And so, the progression of artists being able to use panel work to really, offer up more storytelling than the writer's, dialogue or narration, like Rossmo does that extremely well.
Yes.
In everything that he works on. So to see this early on in a book of his in his career is a nice reminder. I mean, it was a thing I didn't think about for a while until going back and reading this again. Going, oh yeah, he's even here, even way back then. He's still using that kind of thing to help sort of tell the theme or tell the intensity of a scene with his panel work. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to set up how this scene ends, because it's like you're looking at these panels, you're watching the action unfold. What action there is. It's Jeanette walking into the cave, the flash of light from within the cave, the scream coming out of the cave. But it's like you're watching this action unfold across the panels, but at the same time, you know that something obviously is going wrong, because she screamed. This bloodthirsty scream comes from the cave. Obviously that's triggering something bad happened. But the way these panels, it's like everything is going so wrong that it's causing the panels to fall off the page. And that I think adds a bit of, it's not like, oh, there was some serial killer in the cave. It's more, there's a monster.
There's something
a bit more eerie with the way that those panels, the way they draw. They're drawn the way they draw. They draw their own panels.
They draw good.
They be drawn good. I like pictures. They make me smile. How would you describe how would you describe Riley Rossmo's art style?
Me?
Yeah,
I've
'cause
had
I'm
to
not
do
good at
that a bunch of times in the past.
I'm not good at that.
He's always really he's hard to pin down because you're as someone who just as someone just in general trying to describe something, you're always trying to compare it to other things
Right.
so that someone goes, oh, well, I can take this from this and this from this, and this is what it becomes, and this is their style. You're looking for influences and stuff like that in this art, and it's hard to find some of those things. I see, bits of like Art Adams' style, sort of his character shapes and stuff in his work, but he's not an Art Adams type. He's not that hyper detailed. His work is so, it has gotten as depends on what he's working on. If he's working on like his DC work or whatever, it's a bit tighter. But in creator-owned stuff, especially in these days, not even in these days. These days, in the proof, he's not as his line work is tighter than it gets. He tends to, I think, as he gets more comfortable in what he's doing, his line work sort of opened up more.
Yeah.
And like if you look at Cowboy Ninja Viking, that series, that series sits on that table over there.
Yeah, nice.
I still have my issues, but it's a lot looser and stuff like that. So I think his style sort of changes. Is not really a good word, but loosens and tightens depending on what he's working on. This being early in his career, as far as published work that I'm aware of, it's really it's tight, but it still has that unique Rossmo style. But it's really hard to put into words, to describe. It's one of those things I always tell people: you just have to look at it. Just look it up.
Yeah.
Just look up his art, and
because you'll know in an instant if it's something you'll like.
For sure, it is. Yeah, it is clearly. It is. I will compare him to using that kind of thought process, like Scotty Young. Like as soon as you see his work, if you like it. Like Larry Stroman.
Yep.
If you're going to like it, or Frank Miller. You're going to like or dislike their stuff is the moment you see their stuff. And Rossmo, I've always enjoyed it from this series, from this issue, but I've appreciated it more the more stuff of his that I saw in sort of the progression. I didn't read like when he did Harley Quinn for DC. Yeah. I think I picked up like maybe the first issue just because he was doing it, and it looked good. I mean, it's Riley. I mean, it's good stuff. But at the same time, it's not, it's not a thing I want to read. But you give me any other book, creator-owned book that he's doing, and I'm right there for it. He's still doing tons of like DC cover work and stuff like that. So they're giving him, he's sort of elevated to where he does. I say elevated. He's in that sort of. I think his art is appreciated to a level now where he does cover art, and that's people are like, yes, I want anything that he does, and if he's just doing covers, I'm buying the covers. Yeah. And true, a lot less work to do. I say less work. I'm not an artist. I don't know, but it seems like less work. But a higher yield as far as pay, and I think that's why artists like him, because his stuff is so, while not as super detailed as Art Adams is very detailed in areas. And so, for him to put a 22, 24 page comic book together on a monthly basis has got to be excruciating. So what I'm saying is take it when you can get it.
Are you reading The Moon is Following Us?
Yes, I am.
I've only read.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I've only read the first 2 issues, but oh my gosh, it's so good.
Well, in 2 artists and 2 writer artists that understand each other's abilities in order to put a book out, but use it as a very unique storytelling, attribute. for a book is
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, those, him and Daniel Warren Johnson are perfect together. So
Daniel Warren
if you've
Johnson-
not read that book, good Lord, you need to
You should.
get out there. And first trade's out. I think it's only a 10-issue miniseries. So if you're a trade reader, do that. I read through the first 5 issues or 4 issues, I think. I'm still picking up the issues, but I've decided, because I'm one of those morons, I'm going to wait for the deluxe hardcover, because I know that's coming out.
Yeah.
And that's going to be way more enjoyable. I mean, I'll still read the single issues as they're coming out, but I already knew that from the first issue. I'm buying this big thing because I'm a huge Rossmo fan, and I've become a big, Daniel Warren Johnson fan over the years. So yeah, it's just going to be a gorgeous looking book. So,
Yeah.
And
Daniel
again, take it when you can get it.
Yep. Daniel Warren Johnson is kind of my go-to guy right
Mhm.
now. If he's on the book, I'm going to buy it. And so
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised to find Riley Rossmo on the book as well.
Yeah.
And it's very clever how they kind of split up the art choice.
Oh, yeah.
I really like
They
it.
both know they're busy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So after what happens to Jeanette, and we learn later, Kevin, we don't know what's happened to him, but something's happened. You turn the page and you get to is it a double page spread? The digital version's not really showing me very well.
No, it's a single.
No,
it's
okay.
single, yeah.
But you get the splash page with the title page. It's got the title of the issue, Skin and Bones, Part 1 of Goatsucker. And we meet Proof for the first time. Who
in his loincloth.
In his diaper. or yeah, it's like a old Japanese like samurais would wear.
A sumo or something.
Yeah.
He's like, because like you said earlier, this is a training exercise. I need to be a wild animal, but at the same time, I've got some pride.
Exactly. It's like, this is maybe my people used to live out in the woods naked all the time, and I'm covered in fur, but it's like he's got it. He loves the suits so much that he just cannot not wear something.
Well, I am glad that we don't see him out there like in boxers or something like that. I think having what he did was
some tidy whities.
Cool, I get it. Yeah. Some tidy whities be like the worst thing. Jeez.
Makes more sense, the thing he's got on there. But he's hiding behind a tree. There are some soldiers. What they appear to be soldiers in the brush in the background that are they're firing their guns at him, and bullets. I'll use that in quotes since we know from the synopsis that they're paint pellets. They're ricocheting off of trees. There's helicopters in the sky. And we get a lot of narration, some really good stuff. I like the narration in this. I don't know, I'm assuming that the narration, the storyteller would be what they consider the omniscient storyteller, which is, obviously it's somebody telling a story, but it's not one of the characters in the book. This isn't Proof telling us what's going on, as far as we know. But he's in the woods. He's being chased by by these soldiers. The next page, 3 panels. The middle panel of him running through the trees with the bullets zinging and pocking and paffing off the trees. I love that. That's one of my favorite panels.
That's a great
in this
shot,
issue.
Yeah.
You know what? The way Rossmo draws Proof, every once in a while during this series, they would have, in the back matter of the issues, some other big artist or just a fan artist drawing their own version of Proof. And I'm just like, nope, unless Riley Rossmo's drawing him, it's not drawn.
Good try, folks. Good try.
Yeah. I don't care I don't care who you are. It's just, he's just created this look for John Prufrock that I love. It's like, I want all my Bigfoot characters to look like that going forward. But he's running from the soldiers. He's captured. We learn that it's a training exercise, and there's a really funny moment here when, as he's running, a net is dropped out of a helicopter on top of him. He rips out of it, and then a guy, a soldier in like one of those ghillie suits that look
Yeah.
like grass, like so he can lay in the you know, and camouflage himself in the ground cover. Pops up, right? Shoots Proof in the chest with one of these paint guns, and yeah, it's really good. That's not the scene I'm thinking about, is it? No, it's the next one. So he's like he's got his hands up.
Oh,
All right.
yeah, where he says he gives up. Yeah.
All right, guys, you got me. So just a great introduction to this character. You turn the page, and one of the soldiers at that point, after he surrendered, shoots him in the head with a paint gun. And you get that panel where he's looming over the guy, looking down at him. Did I not look got enough for you? And this poor guy, sorry, my trigger's loose or something.
Right, yeah.
And then he's delivered a folder, an envelope out in the middle of the woods.
Right, yeah.
Some new case or something calling him back into the lodge.
The lodge can't wait. You need to hear it is.
Love this scene. Great introduction of the character. Beautiful art. This is and then we got these really great cryptoids throughout. There's one in here about Hawaii. Let's see, there are witnesses who claim to have seen Bigfoot in every state in the U.S. with one exception. Hawaii remains the only state with no recorded Sasquatch sightings. Are Hawaiians not paying attention? Are they better at keeping secrets? Or does Bigfoot hate ocean travel? If you had that much hair, would you spend a lot of time on the water? No, I would not. So you have kind of this amalgamation of things that are just coming together just in these first few pages that really, I think, help make this book as a whole sing. You've got the wonderful art, you got the wonderful story. Two great things that go great together, like peanut butter and chocolate. So you got that going for it already. But then you combine the narration, the voice of the narrator. I like that. Whoever that's supposed to be. Because he said, there's the splash page. He asks, is Bigfoot out there somewhere? What about Loch Ness Monster? Thunderbirds, the Mothman? Is Elvis still alive? So we've got this fun stuff from the narrator, but then you combine it with these cryptoids, which just add like an extra level to the story. It makes the story even more enjoyable. So you're watching a Bigfoot in a diaper running from soldiers in the woods, but at the same time, you're just reading these fun little facts about Bigfoot and whatnot. And it's really good stuff. So we then go from there to what is my famous locker room scene that got me into this.
It's a locker room. Let's not go shower room. That's going to get a little creepy here.
Well, there's a shower back there. Shower is attached to the locker room, but they're sitting in the locker room. Like I said, if you've ever watched shows like Starsky and Hutch or Lethal Weapon or any buddy cop TV show, especially anything set in the, from the 70s and 80s, there was always a locker room scene, and they always look like this. There was the shower. There was the big long benches in front of the lockers. A lot of those shows, though, I don't remember it being on Starsky and Hutch because I don't have a lot of memories of the show. But I remember that they did the comedic remake movie with Ben Stiller. And was it Owen Wilson? And I think that's the movie where the two of them are having one of their locker room scenes, and they're standing there at the mirror, and they have the towels around their waist. Otherwise, they're completely naked, but they have their gun
jackets on,
their shoulder holsters.
Oh, okay.
They got no shirt on. They got their shoulder holsters with their guns. I guess just in case something breaks out in the locker room of the police station. But yeah, that gave me such 70s, 80s cop movie vibe. And then you include Bigfoot in there that I love it so much. Looking at the art, and we're trying to describe his art. I just thought of my brain says it's the perfect analogy, but I'm sure it's kind of weird because two of the terms you used for his art was loose and tight, because he's both. He's like got this tight line work, great figures, and yet just loose stuff at the same time. And
Yep.
one of the examples would be this locker room scene. The very last panel, you see Proof standing there. He's got his shirt and his tie on, and his fur is still wet. So it's like some of his hair on the back of his head sticking out. But, Rossmo just adds a lot of extra lines, and not in a way that's like, why he doesn't need those lines there.
Right, yeah.
It's a really interesting look. And so here's my analogy. I was watching Star Wars the other day because it was May the 4th. There are a number of scenes in which Princess Leia, when she is up close, which close-ups, she's got her hair in those tight buns. So it's this sculpted hairdo, right? Tightly wound buns on the side of her head. But you get up close and you see all these hairs, this just sticking out off her head that have come out of the buns and whatnot. That's his art.
That's a good,
perfectly styled, put together, just wonderfully, and yet there's still shit hanging off of it, and it looks great.
In 480, it looks like it's tight and neat, but in HD, you can see all the little strands. So
that's right.
All
right. So in the locker room scene, we meet this Walter. Was that his name? Because they don't say his name in this issue. And I don't.
Oh no, you're right. They don't. It's Wayne.
Wayne. It was a W.
I had it in my notes.
a W-A. You had the first two letters, correct?
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's in the locker room with Wayne. Now, remind me, because it's been a couple of weeks since I read this issue, to be honest. Was Wayne was his other partner?
No,
that got promoted. No. Okay.
No, Wayne is just basically the caretaker for the cryptids.
Yeah.
Or that's what his job is now. I don't know what it was prior to that. They don't get into it. But he's the one that makes the reference to Proof's previous partner. And he's like, "Oh, don't you remember he got promoted?"
Yeah. Because the way they say it here on this, because it's the last two panels, Wayne asks him, "What did you do to your last partner?" I forget. Yeah. And Proof's answer, "Got him promoted." Jealous? Yeah. And so without if you don't notice the jealous, it almost sounds like they're being sarcastic. Like Wayne was his ex-partner and now he's been promoted.
Oh, that may be the case.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, it could be.
With the jealous? Why would he be jealous if he's talking about him? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always assumed that Wayne was the ex-partner, but most of these issues I haven't read since 2000.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, same. It's been a while.
And I'll be honest, I have every issue. They're all up in my attic.
Nice.
I don't know if I ever finished the series reading it, to be honest with you. Because
wow.
I know that the end of Proof and the beginning of Proof Endangered, somewhere around there is when I kind of stopped reading. Everybody has those periods where they just stop reading comics.
I don't remember how Endangered.
Yeah.
I don't remember the story. I remember reading it, but I don't remember the story. And Proof toward the end is kind of that way too. I don't quite remember how it ends. So I'm looking I don't have the issues anymore, which really sucks because they've always been one of those like, oh, I'm going to get those at some point. And then when they made the announcement about, the show, and all the prices jacked.
Yeah.
But anyway, the omnibus is coming out in May, sometime in the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to picking that up so I can actually go back and read it. But I was told somewhere in Endangered, there is an ad for future stories. Like they had already broken it down, like however many more miniseries were coming out. And then just nothing ever happened to it. Now, again, I don't have those issues anymore, so I can't go look. I did try to search for it a little bit today. But my buddy who I was talking to about this, he was like, yeah, he said, I don't remember exactly what they were. He said, but I think there was, 3 or 4 or 5 more story arcs, that they were going to do. They just never did them.
I feel like, and this may be a false memory. I may be remembering a different title altogether, but I feel like I read at some point there near the end that when Proof Endangered came out, that they had these next few story arcs plotted out, and that's how they were going to do them. So it's like, Proof Endangered was a story arc, and then they were going to do like a third title, like basically
approach.
Exactly, the Hellboy approach, just a various mini series. But yeah, I don't know what happened.
Sales.
As
Sales is always the number one thing. I don't know that for a fact, but I do remember during that time was when Mike Smith and I were doing Image Addiction, and that was a conversation that he and I had, that it seemed like sales, like the fact that Endangered even happened was a shock.
Yeah.
But it was because Proof has always been a very underground cult favorite book.
Yep.
If I mention to anybody our age, they're going to know what Proof is. Either they didn't read the whole thing, but they at least know what it is. But you talk to anybody who's 10 years younger than us, even maybe 5 years younger than us, they don't know what it is.
Nope.
So, it's like this with all of comics. I mean, it's just once you sort of get outside of that audience. Now, the fact that there's an omnibus coming out, and Ed says next week is coming out, that means Image thinks that somebody's going to be buying this book. Somebody's looking for this thing. So I'm one of them, so I'll be picking it up. But hopefully they'll get more folks interested in it again, because at the very least, I would like to see a one-shot miniseries or something, because putting Alex and Riley back together again is a thing on Twitter that a handful of us do all the time. We constantly annoy the two of them. Well, Riley's not on Twitter anymore, but all the time.
You drove him off of Twitter.
Yeah, that's it. We drove him off of Twitter. But yeah, so it's always because this character, these characters, this story is a thing that is it's solid storytelling. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's one of those things like you don't want to not have it. While you're in it, you're enjoying it, but once it goes away, you're just kind of like, but I want more of it. So I hope the omnibus, the television show, sort of spurs up more interest in it, and we get something else. But again, I don't know if Alex and Riley even want to do it.
Yeah, they might not.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything new about the show? I heard they had the announcement, and then haven't heard anything since. And was it Fox?
I even forget that. Yeah, I need to look that up again. But yeah, I forgot who even picked it up.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I know that this day and age, stuff is announced 2 or 3 years in advance, which annoys the crap out of me. But I hope it's still in the works.
If I remember correctly, I feel like they had a showrunner already involved. Yeah. It wasn't just like some studio picked up the rights to it or whatever. It was like, hey, we've got the ball rolling. We may not have scripts being written, but we have, we've got the backing, and that's always a big thing. It's the backing, the money, drives everything. But having the money, the backing, the showrunner is super important to get things going. It might be that, they're just sort of holding off for something. And again, a lot of these things do sort of die on the vine, after time. I mean, there's plenty of comic books that you and I both are big fans of that have made announcements over the last 20 years that, never came to fruition. And then we'll be surprised one day when they actually hit. So they have it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I really hope that it ends up being a thing, and hopefully we'll see a resurgence.
It's going to be an expensive show
back into popularity. Yeah, that's what worries me about shows like that.
Yeah. I hope it's going to be a lot of practical effects, because I think that will keep the price down.
Yep.
But yeah.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But Ed says Fox has it.
Fox. Yeah, that's what I thought. Which, they have a reputation for canceling shows without giving them a chance. So,
Exactly.
I'll cross my fingers because it's a very underrated book.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention, I kept forgetting. So I'm glad you brought it up. Of course, all these issues are out of print. You can still find the trades online and in stores, depending on the store, but the trades aren't in print anymore, I don't think, but you can find them.
The trade I got for this, I ordered it. It's the 4th printing.
Oh, okay.
And it came out in 2024.
All right.
It's not
good.
Too long ago. So, but
they don't.
The fact they're still there, it got up to at least 4 printings for the trade. Is pretty good. So
they don't. I know that they're not. They don't have any digital. I do all my stuff through Comixology these days. I get digital issues if I buy stuff new, and you can't get them digitally. They're not offered. But once the new omnibus comes out, I'm sure a digital version will be that. That will be out.
Yeah.
And I have that omnibus. It's on my I'd love it on my bookshelf. No freaking way I'd ever be able to afford it. But hey, folks, it's on my Amazon podcast wish list, which you can find at somanypodcasts.com. Go check it out and buy me stuff.
Yep. It is.
I ain't too proud to beg.
That's a nice book. Well, I say it's a nice book. I haven't seen it yet, but it looks to be a nice book. So
yeah, cover looks really nice. I say that. All right, so after the locker room scene, we go deeper into the lodge. Wayne and Proof are they've showered, they've cleaned themselves up, they're dressed, and they're going to a meeting. They're gonna go meet Proof's new partner. Now, there's a nice little back and forth here between Proof and Wayne. Proof is he's giving Wayne crap about the sweater that he's wearing.
Yeah.
And then Wayne, of course, is giving him crap because I'm the Sasquatch legend. There's a reason why they're sometimes referred to as the skunk ape. I think the Sasquatch does not have a reputation of smelling very well. So I have to imagine a wet one is even worse.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be bad.
But Wayne refers to him smelling as like a wet dog. So they go into the briefing room, the meeting room where his new partner is waiting, and as soon as he walks in, she screams, "Everybody down!" Yeah, and she pulls her gun. Yeah, pulling the trigger with nothing coming out of it. We meet the director, the guy who runs the lodge, Director White. He takes the gun from Ginger, introduces her to her new partner, John Proofrock, and they shake hands, and it's like I don't know, it's like a dinner plate shaking a teacup saucer.
Yeah,
her hand is so tiny compared to his. It's like
now it's impressive that she even, like we talked about how she's just not fazed by things, or she's got so much confidence in herself. And the fact that this Bigfoot walks into a room, she takes a single shot. I did the click for fun, but she takes a single shot, meaning she was certain that her shot was taking it down.
Yeah.
But then to turn around and just sort of like, oh, hey, how are you? Like that time you tried to kill me, don't worry about it. Yeah. And he's just like, but yeah, their hands they shake their hands like these are very, very tiny hands.
She's very, obviously, I don't want to say she's unflappable, because obviously the sight of a Bigfoot caused her to want to pop off a shot.
Yeah.
But she quickly recovers. Yeah. Now we learn when we get to the backup tale, of course, we'll learn that Proof is not the first strange thing she's encountered.
Yeah.
But even still, she's very cool about the whole situation. She tried to kill him, but now she's like, all right, I'll be partners with the Bigfoot.
Yeah, sure.
And and so that's when Leander White, the director, he gives his presentation, and we learn about the Levys disappearing. And what I like about the way that this part of the book is set up is that you get one page after Proof and Ginger meet, and then they have the page. They're sitting down at the table, and Director White starts his meeting. He starts his debrief. But we don't the camera doesn't spend time in the meeting room.
Mm-mm.
From there, the scene changes back to the cave, and we're seeing what's going on at the cave, but we have narration boxes of Director White giving his presentation. So I love crap like that, because it's like you're getting two stories at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting all this information about what's going on with what they need to look into, what happened to the Whites, what they're, but at the same time, we're getting an even darker picture, because while we're hearing about what has been found, we're taken inside the cave, and someone's outside. The outside of the cave has been, they've put on the yellow police tape, do not enter. But inside there's somebody or something is humming. And that's when we see the Jeanette and Kevin Levy skin suits hanging from a stick. And then Jeanette Levy's skin suit is no longer there, and Kevin's is by himself. And the whole time we're getting Leander's meeting, his presentation, and then we're also getting some cryptoids at the same time. Yeah. And so there's a lot. You get a lot of great stuff in this issue. A lot of great stuff. Mm-hmm. We go back to the meeting room to see the final picture on Jeanette's camera roll of film, that she obviously we saw the flash of light in the cave. Mm-hmm. So it looks like as she walked in the cave, Chupacabra attacks her. She happens to snap off a picture, probably just out of reflex. And the last picture on the camera is this very scary looking Chupacabra. And when Director White gives the other names that people know the Chupacabra by, he mentions the Mexican Bigfoot, and we see reaction that causes a reaction in Proof. We don't know why in this first issue. We learn more of that in the second issue, but it's kind of to me it's kind of a subtle thing, because again, I don't pick up on stuff, but we just see this look of like surprise on his face, like Mexican Bigfoot, but we don't know exactly what it is other than the name Bigfoot that has him shocked. But it's just, like I said, I think it's a great first issue, great introduction to the story. They give us just enough to hook us, and they start building very slowly this mysterious background of Proof. Yeah. You're obviously, if you read a book like this, you're introduced to a Bigfoot in a suit working for a secret government organization. Your first questions are going to be, how did a Bigfoot get to this point? How did this come to be? And so we know they're going to answer that at some point, but we also get this feeling that he's not just a Bigfoot that came out of the trees and put on a suit and started working for a government. There's something to his story. We just don't know what it is yet. So we go back to the scene of the crime. There's I don't know if he's a lodge member or just a police officer, a local cop. He's wearing what looks like almost like a half police uniform. If they made a tracksuit out of a police uniform, that's what it looks like he's wearing, because it almost looks like a tracksuit, but he's got like a belt on with little pouches on it, and he's got some kind of insignia on his pocket. So I don't know who this guy works for. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to be with him long enough for it to matter. But he's standing outside. He's basically, he's keeping an eye on, he's guarding the cave, talking to somebody on the phone about what's going on. And he didn't think they're going to find these people. And that's when Jeanette Levy steps out of the bushes. We get another splash page, the last page of this story. such a great, it's a splash page, but then it's got 3 inset panels. But the image of Jeanette Levy in the main part of the page where she's just standing there holding herself, tears running down her face. She's all scratched up and bruised. She's wearing just her underwear. And until you get to that reveal at the bottom of the page of the gash in her skin, you combine that with seeing those skin suits earlier, and then you see this, oh, somebody might be wearing her skin. But at first, hey, Janet got out, that's what I thought. And, she looks like she had a bad time of it, but she's no worse for the wear, maybe some psychological issues. And that's when we see the gash, the tear on her buttock. And I like how they reveal it to us as the reader, but they don't reveal it to this cop that's standing there or whoever he is. I'm going to assume he doesn't survive this encounter because I don't remember him at all in the second issue. But yeah, that's how the main story ends. Jeanette Levy returns. Yay. She's escaped. What happened? What was her harrowing experience? What's that on her back? Holy crap, somebody's wearing a Jeanette Levy skin suit. And that's how the issue ends, or at least that story. And it's
right, yeah.
So good. So good. Anything you want to say about the main story? Anything that you feel needs to be talked about?
I think we've covered every little bit of it. I mean, it's still one of those things, like, it's been years since I've read it, and it all kind of, like, I was a little worried about getting back into it because I've read it a few times, since it got published, but it's been probably a good 10 years since I've read it. And it's always that fear that you're like, it's not going to be quite as good as I remember it being, and maybe I'm not as big a fan of it as I used to be. And no, it didn't take but just a couple pages. I was like, oh yeah. I'm still a fan of this. This is still really good. And I really need more people paying attention to this.
Yes. Yeah. I do. I think Ed points out in the chat, because I brought up the whoever this guy is, whether he's an officer of the law, it looks like he's wearing a tracksuit. Ed says he's part of the tracksuit mafia, which is a Hawkeye reference.
Yep.
Of course, on this last page of this story, it's colored a slight bit differently, so that his top is darker than his pants, so it looks less like a tracksuit here on that final page. It looks more like a jacket over pants. Yeah. Spent a lot of time on this guy's clothes.
Yeah, you're slightly focused, just a tad. Not mildly OCD at all, are you?
I'm gonna write some comics just about that guy.
Just about that one guy. The story that you didn't know you wanted.
I'm gonna call him Bert. Looks like a Bert. So yeah, that's how the main story ends, with a mystery. We were suspecting a chupacabra because we've got it on film, and yeah, looking, reading this for the first time, really was looking forward to seeing what was going to freaking happen. But we're not done with the issue, because we have a backup story, Ginger Brown's Big Week, and this is set before the main story and leads right up to the moment where she meets Director White and he has her unload her gun. So I'll give you the synopsis. Ginger's week kicks off in New York's Diamond District, where masked gunmen hold a jewelry store hostage. She offers herself in exchange, but a colossal gray figure bursts out of the back, sends her clear, and swiftly subdues the robbers. Back at the office, what do they call the headquarters? FBI? Yeah. Anyway, her boss erases any mention of the giant and benches her. Undeterred, Ginger checks the morgue, no mysterious corpse, and scours the library for golem lore, where a stranger confirms she's not hallucinating and hints at her new job. Reassigned unexpectedly to Washington State, She argues with her boyfriend before answering a motel phone. By Friday, she stands at the lodge, greeted by Director White and introduced to her new partner, John Prufrock. But hey, everybody calls him Proof. The adventure begins and the mystery endures. Give me your first impressions on this backup tale.
I like the fact that they used a golem, and I like the fact that she was not afraid. Like, she knew it was going on, and she was not afraid to put it in her report, even though it sound, to anyone else who wasn't there, is insane. But she was like, no, there was a dude there who, it was definitely a golem, and even knew, the word that was written on his forehead, paid that much attention. So, it's like, she's sharp. She's definitely, she's a good cop, or good, not cop. She's a FBI agent, but
she's really upset over the idea that her boss is going to take, that her boss is even going to edit her report, but that she's going to change it in such a way that she's going to remove that from the report. Ginger's not happy about that. I really like the way that this story is broken out. Like I said, it's called Ginger's Big Week, and it's 7 days, Saturday through Friday. And is it 1 page per day? I think so.
I think it's roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So 7 pages, 1 page per day. And it just follows the Ginger's week. Something crazy that happened to her on Saturday, which is the jewelry store robbery and the golem appearing. And that is what it's from that one event that ends up getting her assigned to the lodge. Mainly because, like you were saying, she wanted it in the report. She's not afraid to let people know she saw something that can't be explained. She's not afraid that this whole background thing is driving me crazy. I gotta stop looking at my image. But yeah, she's not afraid for anybody to call her out as being crazy or seeing things or whatever.
She knows what she saw. So.
Yeah. So on Saturday is when the incident happens with the golem, who literally knocks her out of the way.
Yeah.
And tells her, "Get down, miss." Then we go to Sunday, where she's in the office, her boss's office, Lieutenant Belinda Drake, and they're talking about the report. And that's when her boss tells her she's going to omit the part about the golem. And then she kind of insists that Ginger take some time off.
Yeah.
On Monday,
just be the hero that everyone said you are.
Yeah.
And just move on.
Yeah, because what witnesses told cops was that there was no big giant gray man, and she took out all the robbers herself. And she's not going to take credit for something she didn't do. She's got a moral code.
And the thing is, the people that were there that were witnesses to it are of a certain sect of people that know of the golem and know that he's there for protection. And so they don't want anything to happen to him. So, so she did it, of course.
Yeah. So on Monday, rather than taking time off, she continues to investigate. She wants to get to the bottom of it. And the first place she goes is to the morgue, because she knows that the robbers, that they died because the golem killed them. And since nobody saw the golem, she's kind of hoping maybe the golem was killed as well and would be with the dead bodies in the morgue. And of course it's not. On Tuesday, she finds herself at the New York Public Library. She's looking up information about golems. And that's when she meets this stranger, who I'm going to assume he's a rabbi just simply because he's wearing a yarmulke.
Yeah.
And of course, he's got the long white beard and the long.
He's definitely someone of some kind of leadership.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's somebody who knows something because he confirms to her that yes, what she saw was a golem. And actually mentions to her that the golem liked her, which is, it's always nice to hear when somebody
It's always a good thing.
He won't give her his name, however, because as he tells her, if you knew my name, I might see you again.
Yeah.
Which is mysteriously.
You're not sure if that's a threat.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's ruddy mysterious, as they said in the IT crowd. But he lets her know, look, you did see what you thought you saw. You're not going crazy. But, he doesn't quite tell her to knock it off, but he hints at the fact that she may be starting a new job.
Yeah.
So then we go to Wednesday. She's back in her boss's office, who is telling her that she's been reassigned. And she had nothing to do with it. She just got word from up above that she's being reassigned to Washington. Ginger immediately assumes Washington, D.C. No, Washington State. She's given an envelope, big manila envelope, which I guess probably contains her tickets and all her paperwork and all that junk in it. But there's a post-it on it that says, "Sorry about your head, Joe." Joe's the golem. I thought that was a nice little touch. Thursday, she's in Washington. She's in her motel room. She's on her cell phone. She's standing there in a t-shirt, socks, her underpants, and she's drinking a beer. She looks very comfortable. She's talking to her boyfriend. I would assume that a move. Where was she? Did they mention? Oh, she's in New York.
Yeah.
So a move to the other side of the country probably would put a strain on relationship. And he assumes that she's cheating on him. That's
like, I'm by myself. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
And some psychiatrists would say that if he thinks she's cheating on him, that probably means he's cheating on her.
Right.
But while she's talking to him, the phone in the room rings. She's telling her boyfriend that where is it? The phone rings and it's like, nobody knows that I'm here except for whoever bought me the plane ticket. She still doesn't really know who she's supposed to be working for. And that's when the phone rings. And then that takes us to Friday, where she's meeting Director White out at the gates of the lodge. Apparently she was supposed to start on Monday, but White explains to her that something happened and they had to bring her on a little early. And of course we know that what happened was this chupacabra attack with Jeanette and Kevin Levy. But this is where he tells her, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you for the bullets from your weapon. And it's kind of neat coming at the end. Yeah. Because we see her in the main story. Like you said, she jumped up, took one shot at proof, but just got a click. They don't explain it. Why she didn't, no bullets came out of her gun. So it's kind of fun with this little thing to let us know that, I don't know if maybe they assume that if we let them keep their weapon, they'll feel more comfortable.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
But you would think, hey, I'm going into basically a field office or, headquarters or something like that. I really shouldn't need my weapon.
Yeah.
But it's a weird request just for the bullets.
In the chat, Ed is asking, so will we see the rabbi associated with the lodge later on? I don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I feel like we do, but I don't remember. Like I said, I know I didn't finish the main series. I remember this arc. I know that there's the Thunderbird arc. There's the arc with the dinosaur in Africa. I think that's the second arc. And then the Thunderbirds is the third arc. I don't remember. Oh, after that is the Spring Hill Jack. Is that where we get some of Proof's backstory? That was a good arc. Beyond that, I don't remember. So just the first 4
I
arcs.
was looking to see what was going. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the Thunderbirds. Yeah, isn't until it's the third arc. Yeah.
And of course, I can't think of the word Thunderbird without. What's the word? Thunderbird.
Well, I mean, and on the cover it says Thunderbirds or go.
Right.
So.
That old puppet show. Yeah.
No, the fun part about that story arc, or actually it's even further away from that. But Alex or Riley or both were very active on the Image Comics message boards during this time. And so there was a group of folks, like I didn't really get involved to the message board until after we were doing Image Addiction. Mike and I were doing Image Addiction. But Mike had always been there. And so Proof is one of his favorite books and everything. And Riley, he's a huge fan of Riley's. But there's a number of them in the from the message board that become agents in the book for the lodge. And there's a funeral that happens like in issue 13 or 14 or something like that. That is Mike Smith's character's funeral.
That's cool.
So,
that's cool.
So I've always told him, I said, and Mike and I have never met in person, but it's one of those things, like I've told him, if I ever meet you, I need to have those issues just so I can have you autograph them, because now I've met somebody famous, someone who's been in a comic. So, but it's also, at the time where they're talking about, we don't meet, never mind. We don't meet the little, what's his name? The little Dover Demon. We don't meet him until the next issue. I read all 5 issues this week, and so it's all blurred now. So I'm trying to remember where my cutoff is and where it isn't. But it's during his story arc where all that happens. But we won't be covering all of it. But.
So Ed asks in the chat, any thoughts on the possible? Let me say that again. So Ed asks in the chat, any thoughts on the possible cultural insensitivity of making the diamond merchant Jewish and using a golem as a monster? Being a non-Jewish white guy, I don't think I can answer that question. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't think
makes
the
sense.
golem is being used as the monster. He's being used as the protector.
Yes. There's a really good episode of Supernatural where there's a character that they meet who has a golem protector, which is it's a really good episode. But yeah, I mean, they wanted to, I think, they needed to introduce something to her backstory here that started her on this journey. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is of diamond merchants in the Diamond District of New York. How many are Jewish? How many are non-Jewish? If you watch the movie Snatch, you just assume that everyone who deals in diamonds are Jewish, because it seemed like every character that was part of the diamond exchange were Jewish. Well, except for the one guy who pretended to be Jewish, even though he wasn't.
Right. Yeah. I forgot all about that.
Ed says, I guess my thinking was that today you would probably get grief by making the diamond merchant a Jewish. That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Again, because being a white guy, I don't know it. I always, I worry about stuff like that, but I don't know. It's a good question. I think anyone out there who's listening, who is Jewish, do you find that offensive? Is that a stereotype that is an offensive stereotype for Jewish people? I don't know. I don't know. I think I've told this story to my wife before, but the moment that I perfectly understood what white privilege actually meant was during the whole Black Lives Matter. There were all the protests going on, and it seemed like, because the media was just really focused on that at that point, that everywhere, whether you were on Twitter or Instagram, there just seemed to be a new video going up every single day of violence at a protest or body cam footage of another Black man being abused or killed. And I remember in the middle of all that, waking up one morning and sitting down at the computer and thinking, I'm not going to turn on Twitter today. I can't even look at it. I just don't even want to deal with it today. And that's when I realized I have that option.
You can,
I have that choice. There are
Yeah.
so many, people of color, they don't have that option. They can't just wake up and go, you know what? I don't want to deal with all this today. So I'm just
going to turn the page.
Right. So that was the moment I understood perfectly.
Yeah.
What white privilege meant. Because it certainly doesn't mean that I get, because I'm not rich.
No.
I barely squeak by, but white privilege can mean some money coming your way and promotions and junk like that, but it also means that as well. Anyway, so back to the end of this backup story. My favorite part, I loved everything about it, but my favorite part of the backup story is how it ends, because we get this final caption box. Ginger's first day at her new job is continued on page 10 of Goatsucker. Flip back a few pages.
Right.
Well, they've already read that. I find that very funny.
Well, and the really interesting thing, and what threw me off as we were kind of talking about stuff, is that if you look at it in the trade, that story, the backup story, isn't the backup story.
Really?
It's integrated into earlier in the issue. And so you get Ginger's introduction. That's why I made the reference to the bullets being taken early on, because in the trade, it is part of that earlier story of introducing her. So when we were talking about before the show, talking about it being two stories, a main and a backup, I'm like, the hers is the backup, I guess, but it's more of like it's still integrated. And I guess in the single issue, which I've completely forgotten about, it was put as a backup story. So
that's interesting. I always, it makes me wonder who's, was that a creative decision? Did Alex and Riley say, hey, you know what, when we put the trade together, maybe, we probably should have put this story a little earlier. Maybe we should have integrated, because the second issue has a backup story as well. Mm-hmm. I don't remember about the rest, because I did read the second issue recently. I actually read the first 5 issues like last year, but my memory lasts about a week and a half if I'm lucky. So, but I do recall there being a backup story in the second issue. But I find that interesting, because
does your first issue have the hunter and the dog at the beginning of the first issue? Oh, it doesn't. So that's why you had no idea what I was talking just like, about.
Oh,
so there's in the trade, there's a whole like prelude to, it's like 5 or 6, it's 4 or 5 pages, but it's outside the cave. And it is a hunter who has already been killed, his dog freaking out, trying to pull the man away from the creature, but because all you hear is something about Gulliver and skins and all this other stuff.
We know who that is.
So later in the issue who that is.
Gulliver,
But it's like, so that's kind of interesting. I wonder when that got added.
There's a bookshelf over here. I may have the first trade over there, because I got it when it came out. I got it at a convention that Alex was at. Let me just real quick jump up and look. Because that I find that super curious.
I mean, it's such a it was a weird thing.
Yeah.
For those of you who are still watching us on YouTube, I am also side chatting with Mike Smith, my buddy who dies in issue 13. He sent me screenshots because he ran downstairs at his house and pulled out his issues of 13 and 14 of Proof and took photos of those pages and sent them to me. And their first page is, or one of the first pages, there's a big scene with his headstone that has his name, and it's actually his wife and 3 girls, what their ages were back in 2008, and a couple other members of the Image Comics message board, as well as Proof, standing in the background. So it's very weird. It even uses his username that he had on the forum at the time, but and unfortunately, I'm also getting live messages from him where he just sent me a picture of all of the pages from that issue, or a bunch of pages from that issue. So once again, I now have to be jealous of my buddy.
It was not over there. So, Mike.
All right. So what I was telling everybody while you were gone is I have a side chat going on with Mike Smith in Twitter. He did send me he did go downstairs in his comic room and get those issues. And yes, there is a whole funeral with his family, his wife and 3 girls, because his character dies. And so there's a funeral in the issue, or just a 1-page homage thing, where it's got his headstone. There's a priest there, Proof's there, Ginger's there, a couple members of the Image Comics message board. Like, Mike's not really dead.
The scene where he died. Okay,
his character died.
Okay.
And then he sent me a picture of, he says, I own 6 pages from that book.
Whoa.
Like all of originals of Riley's.
Nice.
Like, you suck.
Mike, what's the guy? Mike
Smith.
Smith, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he and I did Image Addiction years and years and years ago.
Do I know Mike? Ask him to, because my memories when it comes to people and faces
he
and
was
names.
he was on the Comic Geek Speak forums under Brickhead. But he is, I mean, he's on Twitter and stuff like that, but he doesn't do too much. He's more of a tweets about Indianapolis Colts and and stuff like that. Or if it's some of this old school, Image stuff, he's still a diehard Image Comics fan.
Yeah.
So.
Something else that the single issues had that are not going to be in the trade, there was a lot of back matter.
Oh
in
yeah,
these single issues. Don't
get any of that in the trades.
Yeah, the copies of articles, from old newspapers about, let's see, Idaho's Wild Man, from the Anaconda Standard from Anaconda, Wyoming, dated January 1902. The Massillon, I don't know how you pronounce Massillon, Ohio, Massillon Independent from 1890. Reign of Terror, stories of the wild man of the woods. There's a lot of neat stuff there. Then there's a lot of just, let's see, there's how many pages is that? There's a number of pages. Alex looks like he wrote an article that takes up a number of pages in place of what would become the Futures letter page. He's kind of talking about where do ideas come from. Talking a bit about the issue and the series going forward. And then he's got a list of recommended reading.
Okay.
And one of them is very interesting because you don't know exactly who Proof is at this point. But so Bigfoot Exposed is one of the books. Let's see. Cryptozoology, A to Z. But the book that I find very interesting, A Gentleman's Guide to Grooming and Style, is one by a Bernard Retzel. Says here, so what you learn if you read this article, Proof has been around for more than 20 years. Like how, and then he put in parentheses, like how I dropped that piece of important information into the end of a text piece in the back of a comic. It says he
Have
has
you
had
been reading the whole time?
It says that he has had plenty of time to learn about the best that human culture has to offer. As a result, he can be a bit of a snob, but he knows how to dress, where to shop, and how to pick a good wine.
Yep.
Things that Alex, is clueless about. So, and then let's see, Mysterious Creatures: A Guide to Cryptozoology is another book that he recommends. And then we get a short teaser for the next issue.
Cool.
It says more goat sucker, more words, more pictures, more murders, plus fairies, a demon, and a small town sheriff named Elvis.
Yep.
Elvis is one of those characters. I read something about Alex Grecian. We'll talk about this when we get to Elvis, but if I don't say it now, I probably won't remember when we get to that issue where he's introduced. But you know, anybody who has ever tried to write and has looked up, tips and just stuff about writing.
Yeah.
You'll see stuff like Stephen King will always talk about how he writes by the seat of his pants. They call him pantsers. So he has an idea and he just starts writing. He has no idea where it's going to go, doesn't know how it's going to end, and he just lets the story flow. And I used to think that was crap until, I saw it happen with something that I wrote. But Alex has talked about the character of Elvis Chestnut, about this idea that he would stumble upon all the time, about people who say, I didn't, that character just kind of came out. I didn't know what I was that character just became a life of their own and blah, blah, blah. And he used to think that was crap until the introduction of Elvis Chestnut, who was supposed to just be in this arc. He was just supposed to be a very minor character. And when he started writing about Elvis Chestnut, it's just, he became a character who kind of wrote his own story and ended up becoming a much bigger part of the series.
Yeah. I mean, even in like the later part of this series, this run of 28 issues, like he hit toward the end, it's almost like the story switches from John to Elvis, for a time. So he becomes a super critic. So that's interesting to know. I didn't know that was how that character kind of came about. It makes total sense that he would just live in this story because he's just the sheriff, where all this is happening. So that's cool.
I'm looking real quick. I'm trying to find the email that Alex sent me. Was not prepared. We've been planning this for months, and I'm not one. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. This, of course, will all be edited out.
Yes.
All right.
I want to get it here live.
So I had reached out to him when I was planning on doing this season myself doing it, and I did the first episode, sent him the episode, because when I have done the way I do Hither Came Conan, which is another podcast I do that I need to get some new episodes out for it, but the guy who wrote most of those Conan issues, Roy Thomas, had a couple of books published in which he's basically talking about each issue, like the first 50 issues, the first 100 issues or something like that.
Wow.
And so I would read an issue and then I'd go and read what he has to say about it. And then I'd put a show together and I'd have all this really good information to talk about that, and of course, I'd mention where it came from and tell people where they get the book and blah, blah, blah. So I thought I'd reach out to Alex and see, hey, you got some good stuff that I can talk about like I do there. And so he listened to the episode and he went back and he read the first 5 issues and he sent me some stuff for the first issue. And I'll read you what he's got here. But first, here on the YouTube chat, Ed says, if either of you is looking for Kickstarter books of a similar vein, I can recommend League of Cryptids, getting ready to fund a 3rd issue in the next month or so.
I'll have to check that out.
I very, 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 very rarely back a Kickstarter because I can't afford it. So if I've ever backed your Kickstarter, you should feel pretty special.
You're very special.
Okay,
Ed is the king of Kickstarters, though. He will.
Oh man,
he has sent me stuff that I wish I could back because it would be interesting to read. So,
because he referred to me as Forrest Gump earlier in the chat, I'll say that the scene from Forrest Gump where the old man says, "That boy sure is a running fool." Well, Ed sure is a Kickstarter fool.
There you go.
All right, so here's what Alex has to say about issue 1. The cryptoids were inspired by a series Joe Casey was doing at the time, where he ran factoids in the bottom gutter of each page. I thought it was a great way to add spice to the story and to get across some exposition without having to write a lot of unnatural sounding dialogue. Yeah, it's genius. I love the cryptoids. It's a great inclusion.
Yep.
He continues, Riley and I disagreed about the nudity. The skin in the cave, the fairies, etc.
Right, yeah.
I worried it would limit our readership and might get a comic shop in trouble, but he argued that we were doing a horror book and we should embrace whatever effects we could. And besides, he wanted to draw it. I couldn't argue with that. He also says we had done an 8-page intro story for proof in the anthology series Negative Burn, and I struggled a bit with trying to write a new intro. I bet that's where the hunter.
Maybe.
I bet that's where that comes from.
Oh,
see. So, and I struggled a bit with trying to write a new intro scene. That's why there are 3 first scenes in issue 1. All right. He says, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have had it. If I had to do it. Wow, my tongue just grew. I'm like the Grinch. His tongue grew 3 sizes that day. So he says, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have had Ginger draw her gun on Proof when she first meets him. Part of the conceit should be that he's just accepted by everyone.
Yeah.
I like that. But I also like that she drew her gun on him.
Yeah.
And then the last thing he has here, Joe the Golem was supposed to be a one-time use character just to give Ginger some backstory. But I love that Riley put him in leather pants and decided we'd have to bring him back. That kind of thing happened a lot. Riley would make some choice I didn't expect, and it would send us off in different directions than I'd originally intended. Hope this helps.
That's good.
I'll get back to you with issue 2 remembrances. So yeah, I'll have to reach out to him and let him know that. I mean, he knows that we're doing this because he retweeted or reposted my Blue Sky postings on it. So yeah, but I'll have to see if he can give us some stuff for the next episode.
That's funny.
All right. Final thoughts on this issue. Do you have a favorite moment?
I still think, as creepy as it is, the Stitch skin is something that sticks out the most. That and Ginger popping off the one shot. But the stitching, the skin stitching, I mean, it's the moment I saw it, it all flooded back to me. And I was just like, oh, I remember this is creepy.
Yeah, it's very unsettling. They did a really good job with that reveal and, having it right there at the very end.
And my adult brain now, having now seen so much horror movies and stuff like that, like my immediate brain just thinks, oh, what does that look like in real life? And it puts a snapshot in my head, and I'm even more freaked out. I'm like, why did I do that? But yeah, so it's very disturbing.
My favorite scene, obviously, for me is going to be the locker room scene because that's what ultimately pulled me, other than the fact that it's Bigfoot. But yeah, that's ultimately what kind of pulled me into the issue or into the book, and it's why I love it.
That makes sense.
All right, then. So yeah, next time in the next Steeven went insane for just a half a second. But in the next episode, we're going to talk about issue number 2. So that's your homework, folks. Go read issue number 2.
Yep, do it.
Ed says that Negative Burn Volume 2, issue number 7.
Yeah, I did look that up.
Story is titled Berserk. Yeah. Is that the what you're?
That's the issue. I don't know what's in the issue. Now
in.
I have to go find the issue.
Yeah.
So
well, that's your homework. You
looks like mycomicshop.com is going to be getting a purchase from Chris.
Nice.
It's going to be a $20 book. I'll be like, nope, sorry, not happening. I will find out.
All right, then. I didn't. So one thing I left out of my notes was the closing out the episode, which is stupid because I do it the same way regardless of what episode is on. But yeah, that's the episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of season 2. I hope you enjoy season 2, and I hope you stick with us long after season 2, bringing guests on like Chris here, which was a long time coming. I really don't know why we haven't done an episode before this, but because Proof came out 18 years ago. Yeah. So about 18 and a half years or so. That's how long we've known each other online.
Like even when I was doing like the Comic Book Addiction Roundtable, like we kind of had our own group, but we always brought in at least 1 or 2 other people from other podcasts. Like, I don't know why I never had you on.
That's weird. Sense. I for much of my podcasting life, especially at that point, for most of that time, I didn't have any way to be a guest on anybody's show. I was dealing for the first half of that time period. I was still dealing with dial-up. I had to record the episode at home, put it on a flash drive, take it into the library, and use their computers to upload it to the internet.
I do remember that now. I remember you talking about that on shows, or just the difficulty of it.
Yeah. but this day and age, it's like I don't understand. I don't know what's wrong with either of us. I'm going to blame Ed. I'm going to blame Ed. It's Ed's fault.
It's just easier that way.
The low rent days, Ed points out in the chat. Yeah,
for sure.
It's back in my, I'm still a low rent fanboy.
That issue is sold out everywhere. Everywhere I've looked. Good Lord.
That sucks. All right. Well, let's wrap this sucker up. This was fun. I enjoyed this. 4 more episodes, 4 more issues, and then hopefully we'll come back in season 3 for some ElfQuest.
We'll do some ElfQuest.
Because you're an ElfQuest guy too, right?
I know
Ed
from the early days, yes. Yeah. It was the very first comic book I ever read.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah. All right then, folks. That's the end of the show. Most of my wrap up is done over the theme song, so I'm not going to say a lot of crap here, but I'll just say that we'll see you next time. My name's Steeven. That's Chris over there.
Bye.
And, we'll see you later. Bye. Okay, so I went ahead and recorded my end just because it's what I'm used to doing. Don't know if I'll use it, but it's there just in case. So now I have to save it. Ed and I were talking the last time we did the Superman Super Show that if I could afford the paid version of StreamYard, then because when we do our live streaming for the Superman Super Show and we're doing Golden Age Superman, we typically do 2 episodes at a time.
Yeah.
And so of course the live stream is recording the audio, but I record my side, Ed records his side. Mm-hmm. And so when we get one episode done, there's a bit there in between where we're just sitting here saving our files. Yeah. And I told him last time, I said, yeah, if I could afford to pay for StreamYard, then I would have a theme and this is the time of the episode where we save our files. Theme song. All right.
Yeah, so I've looked, like StreamYard was not this expensive when Ed and I were using it. I looked at it in the last couple weeks and it is I don't know why it is so expensive now.
I don't know. It's just. I'm sure they'll blame it on the tariffs.
That's what I blame everything on. Even before it happened.
It says there's copies on eBay.
Yeah, but they're probably super pricey. Yeah.
Yep. First appearance.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's the first appearance proof. Yeah.
Yeah. Once they announce something like a show, there's a new TV show coming out. Yep. And it's going to be proof. Just hordes of people.
Yeah.
First thing they do, first appearance of proof, and then they buy that issue up.
Yeah. And I didn't. Yeah. Until you said it, I don't think I ever knew.
Oh, good point.
Because Skype is gone.
Yeah.
That might be a good point.
Yeah.
But until you said it, I didn't even think about negative burn. Like I don't think I ever even knew that they did not an origin, but a first appearance in that. Because even though I do remember, I read Negative Burn when Caliber did it. I don't think I ever read it when Image did it. So.
Yeah, I don't think I ever read Negative Burn, and I wonder if that is what I'm thinking about when I was saying that Alex and Riley did something.
Yeah, it may have been.
It may have just been that. So.
Yeah, because when you said that, the only thing I could ever think that they had done before was proof. So. Mike did share with me a little bit ago that the one now Riley has sold all of the pages of proof at this point, but he does not know what happened to the first issue cover. He's assuming he sold it, but he kind of like remembers who he sold stuff to, and yeah, he said he has no idea. And there's one other page that. It was one of these unsolved mystery kind of things that Riley lost somehow. That he has no idea how it went missing, and they were looking for it either for doing the omnibus or they were going to do something else, and they needed a copy of that, and he didn't have the original anymore. So there was a time I know they were trying to collate all the people who had original pages or something. I forget what this is, like 8 or 9 years ago. But yeah, so he was sharing that with me. And I was like, oh crap, to not know where the cover is.
Yeah, I know that he redrew the cover because when I was looking for artwork for the first cover, which when I first started thinking about doing proof, I used to do these like online banners for each episode. So I'd use the cover of the issue and the banner, and I was looking for artwork for issue 1, and I ran across a redrawing of it that he had done, which I found interesting that he'd redrawn it. But I guess if he lost the original art, that might be a reason. And it like looks like the front cover, that cover, but better.
I can imagine.
Obviously improved as an artist. And I was just looking at the proof compendium online. It goes on sale June 17th. I'm looking at it on Amazon, and they have some preview pages up, and it's got that scene with the hunter and the dog. And this totally looks familiar. So yeah, I obviously would know this from that first trade because I have the first trade, but
I'm just wondering when it got added. So that'd be an interesting question.
I bet I'm going to speak out of my butt here, but I bet that opening bit, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages.
Yeah.
I bet that's what they had in Negative Burn. And, but is that proof though? That's in those pages? Okay. Well, then that wouldn't be the first appearance. Well, yeah. If this is what is in Negative Burn, then and if that's not proof, then it's not the first appearance of proof. It's the first appearance of any story told in that world, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But because this guy is obviously a Bigfoot, but he's referring to Gulliver. Or is this the Chupacabra? Now I can't remember.
I think it's the Chupacabra.
I think it's Chupacabra, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
all right, well, I'll ask him.
Yeah, and worse, that's what you could do. Hey, since you know a guy.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping he'd be a he'd be watching.
Well, I did tweet that we were doing it, and he did retweet it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's kind of like anybody when someone's talking about your work, you don't want to be there listening to it. You want to you want to kind of be like at arm's length and just like, okay.
Yeah, I don't understand that concept at all. If somebody's talking about me in a positive fashion, I want to be there to listen to it. I've said to people many times over the years, the guaranteed way to get me to listen to your podcast is to talk about me.
Just to say I am the Joe Hendry of podcasting. Say there.
All right. So before we sign off, are you available this same time next week?
Yeah.
You want to can we kind of pencil in the next 4 Thursdays?
I had already planned on it.
Cool.
My daughter's, I'll let you know.
My daughter's over on the couch and she looks sick now.
She's like, "Oh my God,
we're doing this
for
the next
again?
4 Thursdays." Oh, she wants to punch me in the face.
Is that just a normal reaction, or is that?
That's just that. Yeah, that's what.
Is that just any day that ends in Y?
It's usually with anybody who sees my face, their initial reaction is just start swinging.
It's just a punch. I was wondering why my hand kept twitching. I just didn't understand.
Be on my gravestone, Steeven Orr, world's most punchable face. All right. Ed, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm showing we have 2 people watching. I don't know who the second person is, but thank you for joining. Anybody who joined tonight. The plan is to do this the next 4 Thursdays, same time. So keep reading some proof. Join us back here, and we'll talk about proof.
Yep.
That's a pretty ingenious scheme.
That's crazy.
Read the book and talk
about podcasting.
Yeah.
To talk.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream now.